to save our home. We must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Another beautiful day out here as we headed back out to Nürburgring, out in Nuremberg, Germany, in an unusual car combination of today, but we'll get into that later. Everyone, welcome back to Season 5 of the AMX Sim Racing World Championship. Things have been heating up over the last few weeks, but again, we're back at it. A few weeks in, things been great. My name is Kevin, and joining me today alongside is Amir. Amir, beautiful past few weeks. I know I probably say beautiful way too much, but I can't help myself. I love being out here, love seeing what these drivers can do, and ultimately, like we said, a few weeks into this season already, we have a few contenders already for the championship that folks will have to keep their eyes on. But what do you most look forward to in today's race?
Well, certainly a good contract combination. This is the Nürburgring that we saw just now, but not in the way that some people would expect, because it will actually use the shorter version of the GP Striker circuit, which is opposed to the Nordschleife that we go by about a few weeks back in AMX 20. This will definitely be a car and track combination that suits itself well, especially that small cars around these small tracks will provide very close bumper-to-bumper action.
Well, I expect that, and I know our viewers can't wait as well. So, chat, we see you out there as well. But make sure to follow all of our social media, guys. If you are watching this at home, we have it on screen right now. So, all of our socials, as well as amxrace.com. You can see the schedule, you can see highlights, all the info, as well as our Discord. Get in there, chat with the drivers. But speaking of today's race, well, a few things have changed. If you're just joining us this season, a couple things have changed from last season. So, AMX Season 5. Can't believe we are already here. It is going great so far. One of the best seasons. We started back on May 25th, and we're going all the way through August 18th. This season's prize pool of $15,000, as well as next level racing gear. So, we start off with a 20-minute qualifier going into a top 15 reverse grid, then into heat number 1, which will last 20 minutes, followed by another top 15 reverse grid into that final second 20-minute heat. So that too, AMX 5 this season, we had things switch up a little bit from last season, but nonetheless, AMX5, that is very similar to how we used to run it last season as well. If you want to get in on here, or if you are already driving, what's up? Shout out to all our drivers. Driver cams are required. So head over to our Discord or our website for more information on that. Payouts are done every $100. So once your balance hits that $100 threshold each month, expect to get some of that money sent your way. Race days are every Saturday and Sunday this season. We have 2 races per day. Like I said, if you want to get in on the action, feel free to head over to amxrace.com. This season's schedule, like I just mentioned, every Saturday and Sunday, starting at 5:50 p.m., followed by a second race at 7:20 p.m. And on every other week, this weekend included, we're going to have our AMX 0 category starting at 5:50 p.m. on Sunday, followed by the all-new AMX 20 at 7 p.m. So, you guys wanted some endurance racing? We brought you endurance racing. AMX 20, all new this season, every other week. So we mentioned pretty good prize pool for AMX5, but here's a little bit more on that. So you do get points for qualifying as well as the 2 heats. Qualify first, you'll get $15, second, $10, third, $9, and so on and so forth. Going into the heat number 1 and heat number 2, the amounts will be the same, but you get an extra $2 for setting the fastest lap with a total prize pool of $250. And if you want to get in here, you must have a minimum I rating of 2,000 to hop into these AMX5 iRacing races. So far, we're a few weeks in already, and things, like I mentioned, are heating up. They're just getting good, folks. First place, last year's first place champion overall, Gael Valero, followed closely in second by Jackson Asenje, third, Toby Soriano, fourth, Corentin Guinez, fifth, Pedro Dean, sixth, Bruno Ducarmo. In seventh place, we got Gaston Culavi, eighth, Ralph Benitez, ninth, Juan Blanat, 10th, Martin Chico, 11th place, Diego Villarreal de Leon, and rounding it out in 12th, Dino Felipe. So you can see on there too, a few people going up the ladder, a few people dropping down, but your top 2 have stayed the same since last week. So it should be a great battle, see what they can do out on track today, see if how many of these drivers want to stay on that top 12, or if we're going to have some newcomers come in and take those spots away from them. And also, speaking of coming into this season, if you want to drive, we do have a discount right now for season passes. So save up to 40% right now if you head on over to the website. Get a season pass for AMX5 iRacing. We also have AMX5 Assetto Corsa Competizione and AMX 20 races. So once again, head over to amxrace.com, get yourself signed up, get yourself some prize money in here. But before we get into today's qualifying, we have to go over and see what we're going to mention. So Amir mentioned it earlier. Amir, I look forward to today's cars.
Yep, thanks for the very lengthy overview there, Kevin, and it was a very good one as well to set us up with what, when, where we're racing at. The the where is of course pretty obvious. It's the Nürburgring circuit, isn't it? The GP Striker layout that we're using here today was only open just after 1984 to rehost the German Grand Prix and European Grand Prix afterwards. The complex itself opened since 1927 and it features the Nordschleife since then, but this particular part, the 3.62 kilometers circuit that we're using, is the GP Striker, also known as the Sprint Striker. So the Grand Prix circuit, but it's the sprint version, so we bypass most of the second sector that goes into the bottom of the hill, but nonetheless, we're still gonna get some pretty close action, especially the tight Mickey Mouse sections will complement the fast-flowing final sectors. And what we'll be racing on? Well, it is the highly popular Toyota GR86 Cup cars that are being used here for the North American and to a certain extent the New Zealand series. Rear-wheel drive, which is quite a nice surprise for some of the drivers who are accustomed to touring cars being front-wheel drive. 228 horses, 1.3 tons, and look at that, hand-mounted sequentials. Not just the ones where you have to go H pattern, but you have to pull the gears to actually go up through it. So really, it's a good driver's car and a great way to get yourself sorted, especially when you want to jump into higher classes of cars. Right, that sets us up so well here. Kevin, we might actually head into qualifying now.
Awesome, and I just seen someone chat popping up on the screen. Those Toyotas have V8s? No, but I wish they did. How awesome would that be? You know, I've seen people on YouTube doing their own V8 swaps, LS swapping GR86 or some of the BRZs. So these cars, it would be an absolute rocket if Toyota would offer that. Let's get that Toyota. Throw a big old V8 in one of these. I know that's just my American side saying, all right, we got to put a V8 in everything. But nonetheless, here we are joining us in qualifying right now.
And we're talking about engine swaps. Remember that someone did a crazy 4586 swap, a Ferrari 458 engine into, I think at that time it was a GR86, and it created a hell of a drift car.
Yeah, that one, I'm trying to think if that one was Ryan Turk, I believe. I know I've seen that was a lot of these Formula D guys. They build some of the craziest builds out there. I know I've seen another one in Rally out there too. Speaking of Ferrari engine swaps, I've seen something out there with the Subaru WRX STI and the ARA this year. So the American Rally Association, they got their season going. And yep, someone decided, all right, boxer engine, nah, Subaru, you know what? Everyone does a WRX or Rally. I'm going to throw Ferrari engine in this. So, man, people out there doing some crazy engine swaps. But right now, going back into today's race. So we're almost halfway into qualifying right now, and it looks like Victor Miranda is sitting on that top spot. So we'll see. Like we said, halfway through, a lot of times some of these drivers have already set in some pretty good laps, but as they're getting used to the car on the track, expect those numbers to only go up.
Yep, or in this case, the time's just tumbling, isn't it? Because the track evolution gets better. The very cold conditions here today, in fact, it's about 22 degrees air temperature and 38 degrees track temperature. It will really help in the circuit evolution, and the times will get even faster.
As you can see that too, it looks a little bit cloudy out there today on the racetrack. So those clouds is definitely going to be nice, keeping the track temps down. We'll see though as the weather changes. Like I said, a lot of these ones too, the weather can do some crazy things. You know, if there's going to be rain, we'll just have to wait and see. I know the drivers, they can see a little bit more right now. But again, right now we're looking at Fabio Zamperlini. So we have, of course, every single weekend, a lot of these South American drivers out here representing for their countries. We have quite a few of the Brazilians today as well. So looking down the road though, right now looking like Gael Valero sitting in 9th place. So our current points leader is sitting all the way down in 9th currently. But like we said, if I know Gael, he's going to be able to set down some more lap times. He needs to just get a little bit more comfortable. So right now, a few of these guys, the Canon esports drivers out here today as well. So always lovely to see these guys on track.
Yep, and a returning familiar face for some of the guys who have been following AMX the last few seasons. We have Fabio Zamperlini in the DHR car, the Dark Hawk Racing Team, if I'm not mistaken, is what it was called. Glad to see him back, but looks as though it's quite tight at the top between him, Chico, and Miranda for that fastest qualifying time. As meanwhile, we're looking at Gael Valero. Surprising that he has not been able to get a good lap time just yet, but we'll wait and see because we know what he's capable of.
And here we go. On board right now, Gael Valero, the Frenchman in the number 33 car. Coming over across the chicane. Oh, looks like someone just went off track right in front of him. So good thing he was able to get off the track, did not spin around. I had a few of those this weekend. So glad to see a lot of these drivers out here as well. We know a lot of their teammates are out with other commitments, doing other things. So, but we love it when we have the regulars out here every single weekend. Rain or shine, whether or not there's other stuff going on, they make sure to fit us in the schedule. We love you guys for that. So right now, Gael Valero jumping up. He went from 9th up to 6th place. And now we can see Martin Chico, the Argentinian driver in the number 4 Toyota GR86, trying to get a little bit of warm tires going right now so he can set. But sitting in 2nd place so far, not too bad. A lot of these drivers right now, you can see on the timing screen, are on their out laps. So they still have plenty of time to set down some more lap time. So Martin Chico sitting in 2nd currently, but we know he's looking for that top spot to come over to overcome Victor Miranda.
Yep, and get fastest qualifier, of course. But he's really working those tires, and I'm surprised he's actually going this slowly because normally you can just run not as high as pace as compared when you're doing in qualifying, but you just let the car cruise around the track and then you aim for it. Because in iRacing, you don't have to worry about flat spots, you don't have to worry about tires breaking in the start. You can just go at it immediately. All you need to do is just keep the tires in this consistent temperature. So Chico then really taking warm-up lap to the extremes.
You can see here a lot of traffic going on too. So that is the one thing about these qualifying. It's not like a lot of the official races in iRacing where you get a couple of laps and hey, you have the track all to yourself. So out here, these drivers do have to share the track a little bit, which sometimes, you know, if you have your teammates out here, depending on the track with some of the long straightaways, it could potentially give you an advantage, but at the same time, you have to look out for those other drivers. So a little bit of give and take out here. But these drivers, they are pros. They know what they're doing. They are no stranger to being out here, sharing the track, and still being able to lay down some of the fastest lap times.
Yeah, laying the gauntlet for everyone to beat, which is what Miranda is doing. And for good measure, he has a teammate right behind him, and that looks like I think it might be Resende right behind, because he is running the same livery as him, though can't confirm the number right now. It looks as though it might just be a different teammate right behind, but whatever it is, it's good to have him behind playing rear gunner, especially when some of the other guys sharing on the track may not have the same intentions.
Now here, so like we said, a lot of the battles have been going on this season between some of the drivers themselves, a little bit of rivalries, but also there's a lot of team rivalries going on. As we can see there, one of the drivers from Sartre, we're on with Gaston Kulavi. So Kulavi, no stranger to AMX. We love seeing him out here. Pretty much, I don't think he's really missed that many races, if I can recall, from the last couple of seasons. So one of our regulars out here on track. Kulavi currently sitting in 5th place. And one thing that I do love to see when we have some of these slower cars is once you look at the timing, a lot of these guys are within a second of each other. So anytime you see the slower cars within a second of each other, that, you know, is going to get some good racing going into the next couple of heats.
Yeah, you're right there, Kevin, especially when we see races like in the TCR class where the gap from first even all the way to 20th can be just within a second. The racing can be very frenetic and to a certain extent can be quite ballsy from a lot of the guys that they try to actually make up positions in the opening laps. And this car will be no exception, but they don't have the extra caveat of front wheel drive where if you get knocked down into the spin, you can just firewall the throttle and get the car straight. This one, once you skate away, you're gonna have to have your fast hands ready to just catch it.
So these cars very popular on iRacing, of course, being one of several free vehicles when you do have an iRacing subscription. So this vehicle, there's a lot of people that I know, you know, they'll go into the MX-5. That's a very popular choice. That's kind of the first choice for a lot of people going into road racing in iRacing and in real life. But also now the GR86, a little bit of a step up. A lot of them compare it kind of like, hey, the new GR86 Cup cars, very similar to an MX-5, small, lightweight, rear-wheel drive, able to really just focus on all of that mechanical grip. So not too much downforce on these cars. Once you get into vehicles that rely on a lot of that mechanical grip, right there, that really teaches you. You have to be able to have your foundation really good. So definitely great learner cars, but at the same time, definitely great cars when you put them in the hands of people like these, able to extract every single centimeter of the track out there.
Yep. Oof. That, and speaking of taking up a lot of space on the track there, Josh Perwin now on screen was really mounting the curbs to get as much time as possible through the short bits. And then looking, you can hear that right. When the car is off the throttle, he immediately gets back on because these cars, you have to conserve the momentum coming through. As it comes across the line now, will it be an improvement despite mounting the curbs? Looks as though it might just be... No, it isn't. He will stay P10, but he will line up P4 for the start of the race.
Just going back, looking now at the timing. So we have a few minutes left here in qualifying. It looks like Victor Miranda may very well be holding on to that top spot. there's about a 0.24 difference between him and Martin Chico in second place. So Chico's going to definitely have to make up some ground here if he wants to be able to get into that first place position. But like we said, a lot of these guys right now too, they're getting very comfortable kind of knowing where they're going to sit. Once we hit that reverse grid, I believe right now today, Victor Miranda is going to have his work cut out for him if he wants to get from the back all the way back into first place come heat 1.
Certainly, and he's got about 12 other drivers right in front here to overtake. That will make his life a bit difficult, but he has the pace, so no doubt he will be using that to his advantage come race time. But let's see if he could do that all the way behind, and he's got a few other countrymen to overtake as well. Rombo with Zampolini, he's probably on his final lap here right now. There's about 1 minute 41 around the circuit. If he could muster up a few more tenths to get out to the front, that will make it a Brazilian 1-2 in qualifying.
And that we see right now about a minute left in qualifying. So some of these drivers that were on board right now, we see Zampolini. We'll have to just see if he has enough pace in him to be able to get in one more lap time before the clock runs out. So as much as it can be a race against each other right now during qualifying, it is absolutely a race against time. So last several drivers looking to get across the finish line before time expires. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it looks like so far these guys are starting to get really, really comfortable as we see Gael Valero just going up on the timing right now, able to get up into 4th place. So that will be his final lap of this qualifying session. Gael Valero, when we started here, halfway down in 9th place, up to 4th now. And speaking in 9th, that right now looks like it is going to be Dantas. So Dantas sitting in 9th place currently with the last few seconds of the clock. So will these drivers be able to get it in? I'm not too sure.
Nope, not enough time. And remember, once qualifying strikes 20 minutes or say 0, it's not enough to complete another lap. So those guys who were just at the final corner, unfortunately, it has to be cut short.
And there we can see your BenQ session winner, Victor Miranda, coming away absolutely dominating it out here in this qualifying session, just blazing fast. Close by in second, we have Martin Chico, Fabio Zampolini in 3rd place, followed by 4th, Gael Valero. In 5th, Jackson SNJ. 6th, Gaston Kulavi. 7th place, we got Pedro Dean. 8th, Josh Perwin. 9th place, Evandro Dantas. In 10th, we got Pedro Moura. In 11th, Diego Villarreal. 12th, Vinicius Dean. And 13th, we have Tim State. So now, Tim State going to be getting that pole position going in heat number 1. Like we said, top 15 always get the reverse grid out here in AMX 5. So we'll see. Given the chance, Tim, we got to talk to him last weekend, as a matter of fact. So got to just kind of see, he's a regular, first of all, but that too, our resident VR driver. We got to see a little bit about that. So if you want to hear the words directly out of Tim's mouth, make sure to check last week's broadcast where we got to interview Tim for a little bit. But right now, we are moments away from going green in heat number 1.
Yeah, man, he finds himself right at the front again, does Tim State. So let's see then if he's going to put up a huge fight here to get a result that he will really be absolutely over the moon with. We're looking at a few other drivers further behind. That's Victor Miranda, of course. That's the run up to turn 1. He's got 12 other drivers to overtake. Let's see what he can do from there.
And a great aerial shot seeing the track. These drivers gridding up. Looks like we'll see if everyone has made the grid. I'm not sure if we're still waiting on another driver. So I see an empty grid space up towards the top. But like we said, Tim State, Vinicius Dean, Diego Villarreal, not doing the best in qualifying, but that's what we got the reverse grids for. As these drivers revving it up, here we go.
Yeah, lights out, away we go then. It looks as though that is a good start for Villarreal. He actually gets the whole shot coming through turn number 1. Pedro Moura is around the outside waiting for him as well, with the Brazilian Tony Kanaan colors. State is being swallowed up by the field here. The rest of the field come through to turn 1. Guy Valero gets spun around. Valero has actually been turned into the back, and the rest of the field come by here. So that's not the best of starts for a Frenchman here, Kevin.
Just like that, We said he was doing pretty good in qualifying, but all it takes is one little thing right there. These drivers in these slower cars, you know it's going to be a lot closer. We see another person going off track back there. That is Diego Villarreal. Oh, coming on. Oh, that could have been a little bit bad right there. Villarreal coming back onto the track, almost getting rear-ended. But right now, it is Dantas leading, followed by Jasper Ruin and Vinicius Dean. Man, I love some of these liveries out here today. I'm looking now at the pink car of Vinicius Dean. Usually we have Tim State out here rocking kind of a pinkish purple livery, so try not to get confused out here as we see his brother in another spin out. Oh no, right there, that looks like that is Gaston Kulavi. So first lap already, 3 drivers spinning out very easy. And oh no, he comes back onto the track. An unsafe entry is going to put him right into Diego Villarreal.
And he took out his teammate. That's his teammate in the SRT colors car. So one of the first rules that in racing is you never take out your teammate. Of course you want to beat them, but you don't want to beat them quite literally. Kulhavi literally took out Villarreal at the worst possible moments.
And that's just I don't know. I'm sure that they'll have something to say about that to each other, being teammates, you know, exactly. But we can see right there the race incident right at the beginning. So it looks like just, yep, people just going a little bit too hot into that corner, taking it a little while. Gael Valero getting clipped and spinning out off of the track. So, unfortunately for Gael Valero, but like we said, hey, you know what? It ain't over until it's over, and we also have heat number 2. So we'll have to see what Gael Valero will be able to do, how much he is able to come back in here. Like we said, we still got 10 laps to go. So anything can happen, as we can see just from lap number 1. But these guys are still door-to-door, bumper-to-bumper going out here today.
And speaking of bumper to bumper, here's the 2 brothers, the twins here, Pedro and Vinicius Dean. And incidentally, they are running same patterns because their team is part of the North team, but different colors. So we can tell Pedro's running green, Vinicius running pink, and around the outside goes Pedro, takes the position away from his brother, as Vinicius though gets a real bad exit out of the hairpin there. So it might have been that he was trying to get rid of the penalty there, Kevin.
Yeah, that might be just what happened. And speaking about the liveries, though, now that we're looking at Vinny Dean, it almost looks a little bit like you see a lot of the cars, especially here in the U.S. He said almost looks like eyelash. When you look at the front of their livery dead on, you can see kind of the paint kind of tearing away. But it looks almost a little bit like those headlights have some eyelashes with a little bit of mascara going on. But hey, nonetheless, I love it. It's giving that 80s big hair rocker vibe. So I love the colors, love the liveries. I love it too when a lot of guys, you know, they come out here bright colors. So we can see now in the bottom right hand though, the Kulavi incident just right there. It looks like it's kind of hard to tell from that angle if he was slowing down just a bit and got taken out from the rear. Oh, but nonetheless, there was contact in that incident there. And then as he comes back on, unfortunately, taking out his teammate, Diego Villarreal.
Yeah, unsafe rejoin there. That's not the way that we wanted. As someone's asking in the comments, why is Lucas Dornelas not racing? We're not really sure, but I think his teammate, because they're running the same color as Dino Felipe is here. As there you can see Josh Bowen getting really swamped by the 2 Brazilians, Resende and Miranda, who pinch him for position, and Josh loses 2 positions in one fell swoop. He might make it 3rd here because Chico's on his tail now.
We can see right here as these drivers getting close going into this turn, right-hander, and oh, a little bit of locking up right there, going in a little hot. So as you can see, those tires absolutely just squilling, getting a little bit of smoke. So that's how you know these drivers are pushing it to the limit. So like we said, once again, not a lot of downforce on these cars, so you can't take them too hot through these corners. Again, they're still light vehicles, but maybe not as light as something like an F4 car, which we've seen last weekend.
Yeah, again, 1.3 tons is this car. It's about 800 kilos more than the Formula 4 cars that we saw last weekend. To a certain extent, even the Formula 3 Delaras. You do not want to get these cars pitched sideways because the weight and the inertia that gets these things going will just go on until the car flips over on its side. Or, in this case, the momentum just keeps on going. You don't want to do that, especially you do not want to do what Resende did, nearly going to the gravel trap and loses 2 positions in one go.
And look at that. So a lot of these drivers, we do see them in a lot of competitions, doing GT3 cars, Porsche Cup cars, as well as going into some of the open wheel categories. So like we said, a lot of stuff, especially when these guys get out there during some of the special events that are going on. GT car is definitely the most famous. So like we said, it's great seeing these guys that are used to these faster cars being able to show off their skills in essentially what is not quite a beginner car, but definitely lower horsepower vehicle. So they'll just push it. Like I said, one of these days, that's my goal, is get my I rating back up, start practicing a little bit more in my off time, and hopefully be able to get out of the booth a couple of days and get out here and compete. But like we said, we'll have to wait and see on that, as right now we are currently lap 4, Dantas leading it, but closely behind him we have Victor Miranda, followed by Martin Chico. So Dantas able to hold it off pretty well so far, as well as another battle going on right now for 5th place between Pedro Dean and Mura. So we have a couple of Muras out here, not to be confused with Leo Mura. Pedro Mura, Leo Mura, I'm pretty sure no relation there, but I'll have to make sure on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the surname, but two completely different countries, a Canadian and a Brazilian. But nonetheless, brothers from another mother, you can safely say on that one. As we look up in front, it looks as though Evandro Dantas has Victor Miranda, who's been the class of qualifying, especially with the speed that he showed, is on the cusp of leading this race right now, Kevin.
Yeah, and that right now, we can see right here, Victor Miranda looking to make a move. So he goes onto the inside. So a little bit of the draft right here, able to safely get right in front, cut in front of him, and make that turn number 1. So right there too, turn number 1, an extremely tight hairpin. So if you don't get that, or if you go flying into that too hot, that is a very easy place to get sent off into the grass. Like we've seen on lap 1, just how dangerous that turn number 1 can be out here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix.
Yep, the GP Strecker circuit, or in this case this is the Sprint Strecker, as it's called in iRacing. It used to be the DTM circuit, of course, because DTM didn't run the full layout. They ran up onto here, and then it went across back to the second and third sectors, bypassing the whole section where it used to be the Schutzschleife. Now we're coming back into the Grand Prix section here. It looks as though Dantas may not have a response to Miranda's pace. He's losing about a couple of hundreds here and there throughout this entire sector, but that will snowball to about a lap, to about a second, as meanwhile Chico and Perwin might be the closest battle on track here. Perwin only about 0.6 of a second behind the Argentine.
So we've seen just a couple of laps ago that these drivers were right on each other's bumpers, so they've been able to spread out just a little bit. Some of these guys finding their groove, a few of them making a couple little mistakes here and there. But as we can see there too, Zenje and Valero able to overtake Zamperlini. So Zamperlini now falling down just a little bit, but still up 3 places from where he started on the grid. So it's always great when you can net positive from where you started on the grid. And speaking of grid, unfortunately, some of those guys that got into the accident early on, Gulavi, Villarreal, we have State towards the back. So unfortunate for those guys, as we're about halfway through this heat number 1. We'll see if they're able to make up any positions, or if they're just gonna call it for heat number 1 and try to get their bearings a little bit. Go into heat number 2, say, all right, try not to make those mistakes, learn from it, move on, and hopefully come out here victorious for the next heat.
Indeed, and guys like State, Villarreal, and now Valero actually. In fact, Valero's into the pit, so he's probably called time in this heat. He's looking forward to the second one. As we can see the inset here, what happened to Fabio Zamperlini. Oh, we did see that a bit, but we didn't really call on it until we found out what happened to Zamperlini, and that's why he mounted the curve a bit too much here at the NGK chicane and sent himself spinning around, but luckily not into the path of anybody else.
And just like that, that just goes to show just how dangerous some of these curbs can be, especially whenever you have tight chicanes like that. And these cars, they can take quite a bit of a beating, but when you get upset like that, glad that he didn't end up a little bit worse. So only a spin out. You hate to see some of these drivers spinning out. That you hate to do it too as a driver, but like we said, that could always potentially be a lot worse. As we see right there behind, another person coming back on track, as we're looking back. Chico, so a few different drivers right there getting past Diego Villarreal, able to go up a place now, as Gael Valero looking like he is still in the pits.
Indeed, and that might have been State as well. Actually, Tim State and Diego Villarreal, who are trying to salvage whatever they could from this heat. they were actually being lapped by the leaders as we were watching Perwin and Pedro Dean coming by. It's a short-ish circuit, as we can see. Valero comes back out on track, so at least he doesn't lose position to Tim State. He'll line up right up at the front row of the grid for heat number 2. But again, it's not such a short-ish circuit because the lap time is about 141s, but you can still encounter lap traffic if you were to be meeting them at the most inopportune moments.
And speaking about quick laps, so yes, Victor Miranda able to hold on to that top spot, but also still able to have the best lap. So I'm looking now at the timing score. It looks like Victor Miranda only having the best lap by just a little bit compared to Pedro Dean. So like we said, we have the Dean brothers out here today. Pedro Dean usually a little bit faster than his brother out here that we've seen on track. So we can definitely see, although these guys, they love each other, I'm sure it's that great brotherly love, but you know, when it comes down to it, it's still a competition out here on the racetrack. So Pedro Dean currently sitting in 4th place, but we know he has the pace to make it a podium here in heat number 1 and also going into heat number 2 as well. So Victor Miranda, Evandro Dantas, and Josh Perween are your top 3 currently.
Yeah, let's see what Pedro Dean's going to have in his locker here in terms of attack. And likewise, what Josh has in defense, because we know how last time out, a couple of weeks in advance, a couple of weeks ago, how Pedro Dean was a little bit loose cannon, shall we say, in his overtaking, but he has made up for it in spades afterwards because he is actually getting better and better with him in his racecraft against other drivers. Let's see what he has in store here, as he's only about 0.4 of a second behind Josh Perwin. Meanwhile, further behind, that's Pedro Mora with his bumper looking really second-handed, almost scraping onto the racetrack and falling into the car.
Yeah, right now I was a little bit surprised that he didn't go into the pits to try to get that bumper fixed, but that too, I mean, you know, if he's not going to be losing that much time, I'm sure he wants to stay above Villarreal, Valero, and State. So those other drivers, you know, we've had to see some people in the pits already. Pedro Muro, even though his bumper's hanging on for dear life, will not pit, at least not right now. So we'll see if that is going to be a we'll have to see if that decision goes out. As we can see right there, he hit the chicane a little bit too hard, came out, spun out, and it looks like, ooh, right there, may have just made contact with another driver. So as you see him drive away with his bumper barely intact. But right now, still a great battle going on for second place between Dantas and Perween. So Perween trying to make a move, but also needing to look in his rear view mirror the entire time, as Pedro Dean is close behind him. So Dean just outside of podium contention, but we know he's not fine with 4th place. He wants to get that win. He wants to get some sort of trophy out here in heat number 1.
Indeed, we know he's capable of his pace. And so we saw in that replay just now what happened to Mora. Well, he actually clouted the side of Valero, so that's why Valero probably had to go into the pits that time around. As on board now with Dantas, with Perwin right up his bumper coming to turn number 1. Can he get it stopped in time? This is normally very tricky to get stopped, and somehow Perwin just about makes it. Pop a smoke here because he locked up when the wheels went above the ground, but he gets it anyway.
So that's a great move right there. Going into that corner. So if that corner was a little bit longer, though, you know, it just might have not quite had the grip to hold that. But that's a great thing whenever you have a tight hairpin going into right-hander hairpin going into another left-hander, you can easily, in case you overshoot it, set up that next turn, be able to hold on to that inside line, and that is what he did. Perfectly executes it. Right here we can see Evandro Dantas, Pedro Dean going at it. So although Josh Perween holding on to second place right now, still Evandro Dantas in 3rd and Pedro Dean right on his bumper. So we'll be able to see if Pedro Dean is going to make a move here pretty soon. We are on lap number 9 of 12.
Indeed, and that was very nip-and-tuck racing between the guys at the front, but you can tell they trust each other enough to actually give a lot of space. So Perwin, Dantas, and Dean, props out to them. Really good driving, but it's still not over. We still have about 3 laps to go after this to decide who's going to be on the rostrum. As a couple of people in the comment section noting about the bumper falling off, one of those was Nick Poop. He says, is it aerodynamic? No, I really highly doubt it. The car will definitely be scraping on the floor here, and if the damage goes into the tires, it might cause a puncture. So not really the best way to drive around the circuit, as now we can see Bowen going very defensive against Dantas, Dean, and Chico for good measure.
Yeah, seeing these drivers being able to battle it out, that has definitely left room on the table for Martin Chico to come up, and as we see him right there trying to make a move on the outside of Pedro Dean, and will he have it? He just might, as he sets up the inside. Ooh, almost taking off the nose of Pedro Dean. So Martin Chico able to catch up to the back, and now is sitting in 4th place, looking for the hunt for the podium. So not only will Pedro Dean now have another driver in the midst of the pack, he's really gonna have to start pushing it. So these drivers here towards the front putting on a great show today. Victor Miranda, though, with all this battle going on behind him, has been able to secure over a 6-second lead. So Victor Miranda is sitting very comfortable in that 1st place position.
Yeah, it really does prove again vindication for him after his qualifying effort, where he really was the class of the field with the fastest time in qualifying. Now he also has the fastest lap in this race and has been leading the past 3 laps, of course, or in fact the last 4 or 5 laps even afterwards, because once he took the lead he never looked back. Now he's just only biding his time here, waiting for the race to finish, while Josh Bowen might just find it quite hard to keep a lot of drivers behind him because he's creating a bit of a train for himself.
All right, there the train going out in towards the front of the pack a little bit. So these guys back again, bumper to bumper racing. That's what we love to see, and able to keep it clean. So it could be very easy, especially as you start closing in. We're on lap number 11 out of 12. Once you start getting closer to the end of the race, that's when you start seeing these drivers just turn it up a little bit, start getting a little bit more aggressive, trying to get every single position that they can. As you can see right now, Dantas with the move right now. So to the inside, we'll see another door-to-door. Absolutely great move. So turn number 1 been a great place to set up those passes, but also we've had a couple of incidents going on there as well. But right now, still door-to-door battles going on. And man, this is what we live for, those door-to-door, as we see right here, the number 2 going to the outside of Evandro Dantas. Pedro Dean taking advantage of that as well, able to catch up. We have one going from Dantas, Dean, and Martin Chico. Absolute great racing.
Wow, that was amazing, wasn't it? Dantas and Dean, the 2 Brazilians, going at it again, hammer and tongs. And at Resende here for good measure, he might actually come into play. No, in fact, that's not Resende, that's actually Guy Valero. So Valero, the 3rd car in that particular shot, is a lap behind, so we don't really have to mind him. There's Resende further behind just now, coming through the hairpin. This is really good stuff, isn't it? It's really is what makes the racing in this series quite breathtaking. You know, when the front guys are at it, hammer and tongs, they can still somehow keep it as clean as a whistle.
So right now, again, almost to the white flag. We've only got a little bit left here in lap number 11. So it's been absolute showmanship from these guys going in, fighting for those podium positions. Josh Perwin, Martin Chico, Evandro Dantas, and now Pedro Dean, all 4 of those drivers going, like you said, man, these guys neck and neck, bumper to bumper, door to door, whatever you want to call it. As we go in, the white flag is waving now for heat number 1. So these guys, we expected to be pushing a little bit harder than they normally would. Like we said, especially some of these guys that are sitting just outside of that podium position, they're going to do everything that they can to try and get onto the podium. As we can see back there in the background, Pedro Dean getting really close to the rear end of Evandro Dantas.
And there's Madre Chico. That might be his mother watching by here, really paying attention to that. So lovely to see a familiar support in the sim, even in sim racing, as he wouldn't mind that too much. He has other things to worry about right now, and it's in his immediate vicinity. He has Dantas and Dean behind, with Perwin just only about under 0.5 of a second here. Still, 2nd place is still on for him.
So right now we're about halfway through the final lap, and it's looking like Victor Miranda is definitely going to walk away in 1st place, so long as he keeps it on the track, keep all 4 wheels off that grass, and he's looking like he can definitely do so. Great job out here, able to go up 12 positions from Victor Miranda. But right now the battle still pursues between Josh Perwin, Martin Chico, Evandro Dantas, Pedro Dean. All 4 of these drivers showing just how much they really want this win. Josh Perwin doing an amazing job out here defending, as these guys getting a few tires off the ground going over those curves. But we'll just have to wait and see as your race winner is finally coming across the checkered flag. That'll be Victor Miranda coming in first, but now it's a drag race to the line. The guys right behind him, who is it going to be? Will Pedro Dean be able to come out? He's going to look for the overtake for Vandro Dantas, but just does not have it. So barely missing out on that third place position, just off the podium. But absolute great showmanship, great racecraft, great racing.
Oh, you can see that what happened, why it triggered the podium fight between Dantas and Dean. Go cut the chicane one time too many in the final lap. He had to concede those positions, and that he paid dearly for it. What was looking at P3 has become a P5, whereas Dantas and Dean were fighting it across the start-finish line in a very close photo finish. Bowen, he survives that one. He will be taking second place any other day for this one. He will love to have a win, but it will still go well for him with that podium, as Pedro Mora then the last of the finishers to come across the line.
And what I want to know is, man, what are those bumpers made of? Because that thing's been hanging on for dear life for quite a few laps. So, I mean, that might just go to show of the craftsmanship of Toyota, just showing how strong that vehicle actually is. But like we said, Victor Miranda, so did amazing in qualifying and able to make his way all the way through the pack to get position number 1 in heat number 1, and also setting the fastest lap. So Victor Miranda sitting in that top spot for heat number 1, followed by second Josh Perwin, Vandro Dantas in third, Pedro Dean fourth, Martin Chico in fifth. Sixth place we got Jackson Asenje, seventh Fabio Zamperlini, eighth Vinny Dean, ninth Gaston Kulavi, 10th Pedro Mura, 11th Diego Villarreal, 12th Gael Valero, and 13th Tim State. So the last three drivers out there, unfortunately finishing a lap back. Had a couple little incidences going on here and there at the beginning of the race, but nonetheless, one of those being Gael Valero. Now that he is going to be at the front of the grid, we'll see if he is able to slowly walk away with a heat number 2 victory.
Or will Tim State give him a good fight coming to turn number 1? We'll love to see how that plays out, because again, for the 5th heat race in a row, it's Tim State on pole in an AMX5 race. As we're going to get underway now. That's a bog start there for State. He's going to get swallowed up by the field almost immediately. There goes Villarreal. There goes Kulhavi to his left and right. As Gael Valero comes into turn number 1, he gets the whole shot. We go into the hairpin for the first time. Who's going to make it through afterwards? Oh, that's going to be quite difficult to stop. But luckily, though, I think the rest of the field, in fact, all of them have managed to come through there safely, Kevin.
And right there, these guys being a little bit more cautious than heat number 1, so they know just how dangerous. They've seen that turn number 1 heat up quite a few drivers in the last heat. So great to see that, especially seeing some of these guys nearly going through wide. I was expecting something to happen on that turn 1. As we see that, as I say, we have going in the back, so it looks like we have State, Pedro Dean almost getting collected. So we have a few people, unfortunately, going back, one of those being Tim State. So fortunately, Tim State went from the front to the back, lap number 1. But now, as you can see on screen, we got a little bit of rain going on. So these drivers, we'll see how long they want to stay out here before they switch over to those rain tires, or if they're going to risk it. We've seen that last season as well. A lot of these drivers, having to come up with a little bit of strategy. How long can I stay on these drives? We'll have to wait and see. But almost through lap number 1, your leader right now, Gael Valero, putting up a great battle with Pedro Mura.
Yep, and Valero then going very narrow, coming to the chicane. He might be caught short here. No, in fact, Mora goes short and takes out Kulhavi. Oh, that is the disaster for Kulhavi. 2 heat races in a row that he is involved in a collision, now of his own making. He gets tapped out as few drivers come into the pits, and that was a late call there from Resende to come through. So, luckily for them, these Toyota GR86 Cup cars do come with wet weather tires, and that will definitely be strategy element that will come into play. And for the Brazilian guys coming to the pits for the Canon team, they're pulling the trigger right now. Let's see if they will pay dividends for them.
And that too, coming into the pits this early on, I mean, part of that is definitely because of the rain. They want to get a jump on that, but just as well as they may not want to be having to battle their way out there in the middle of the pack. So it might give them just a little bit of breathing room, getting those tires changed right away, as we see right now. Gael Valero first, Pedro Muro second, Diego Villarreal in third. But seen going on in the middle of the pack for a battle for 4th place. So Josh Perwin showing his amazing defending skills, but this time it is not against Pedro Dean, it is against his brother Vinicius Dean. So the Dean brothers right here have been a little bit of a pain for Josh Perween, but we can see there in the bottom right-hand corner the incident earlier on with Tim State. So it looks like right here, classic pace of some of these drivers just trying to get to the inside a little bit too much, really jumped up into each other, and unfortunately Tim State having the worst of that incident.
Yeah, it looks as though he might have actually gotten the side of one of the SRT cars. I'm not sure if that might have been Villarreal, but it was the second part of the incident that caught him out. Basically, everybody checking up afterwards when the cars were passing by the Mercedes-Benz arena, and unfortunately, he got the real short end of the stick. He was sent right to the back, but amazingly though, he is now up to P9, so he's in the top 10 despite the early woes.
You see right there. So now we have Evandro Dantas battling it out for 5th place with Martin Chico, and also Vinicius Dean in the 4th place position, as well as Pedro Dean coming in the back. So once again, middle of the pack battles going on, and the same as heat number 1. So we'll have to see, as a lot of these guys have amazing pace. So I expect this to start being a battle for podium position very, very soon. As we see Dantas trying to make it to the inside of Vinicius Dean. Oh, he's going a little bit hot here, so we'll have to just wait and see, will he get it slowed down in time? He definitely does, but now we go out of the right-hander hairpin into the left-hander, able to keep a great exit out of that. So Evandro Dantas right now holding on to that 4th place position.
Yeah, for these guys who are staying out on the dry weather tires in the wet, that is quickly drying as well, because actually the rain stopped, so we're back to overcast conditions. It might dry up again once we head to the end of the race. So those guys who pitted earlier for wet weather tires, Zampolini, Miranda, and Resende, the Brazilian guys who did so might just have been caught short here, and they will have to come back into the pits again if the tires go dry, because if they're on dry weather tires on the wet weather tires on the dry circuit, they will overheat them and it will cause them to lose grip altogether anyway.
So right now, like you mentioned too, we'll have to see what the weather does, or if that is not going to play into their favor. But right now, we're starting to get a little bit more spray off the track, so the track is definitely damp. It is not pouring buckets quite yet. So out here at the Nürburgring, that is one thing, whether it's on the Nordschleife or whether we're out here on the Grand Prix track. One thing that you can't expect is the weather out at the Nürburgring is always crazy. It can change from minute to minute. So a lot of these drivers, like we said, we'll have to see. They can see the weather as, oh no, we're getting taken out right there. That's Martin Chico. A little bit of a bump, and unfortunately ends out, as we see, Evandro Dantas was the one that ran into him, looking like he was trying to just scoot over to get into the pit lane, and those two drivers ended up into each other. So unfortunate right there, but we have, looks like almost half the drivers now getting onto the wet tires.
Yep, and this is almost like the situation that's happened just now in the actual 24 hours of Le Mans, where the rain wreaked havoc at Le Mans here. Half the teams decide to pull the trigger and come in, like what we're seeing right now. Well, a few teams decide to stay out and pay dividends for them. But in this particular case, because we're not at Le Mans or at the Nordschleife, we're not going to get one part that's wet and one part that's dry. The whole circuit will be wet, and this is why we see a lot of drivers coming in to just switch over to the wet weather tires, because it's not worth staying out and lose almost about 10 seconds a lap from slipping and sliding.
And one thing, speaking of out here at the Nürburgring, so there was the real life 24 hours at the Nürburgring very recently, which unfortunately ended early due to the immense fog. But before I get back to that, now you can see in the bottom right hand the Martin Chico incident. Yeah, it looks like right there, just unfortunately those two drivers were not on the same page, and we've seen Martin Chico getting sent off. So like we said, it looked like a last minute pit decision, and unfortunately, hey, there was someone right there on the side. So, but back to what I was saying about the Nürburgring in real life for the 24 hours. So unfortunately, it did end early due to the immense fog. So I had a few people out there. One of my personal drivers I was rooting for. We have a couple of YouTubers out there, but one of those being Jimmy Broadbent. So very popular iRacing YouTuber, sim racer turned to real life driver. Now riding in the BMW M4 cars, or sorry, the GT4 vehicles as well. But back to the action on track right here. We have Gael Valero, who was able to get far ahead. So he's already a 12-second lead over Martin Chico. Right here we see Martin Chico trying to fight off Pedro Dean for that second place position.
Yeah, you can see just now when we were on board with Valero on his inset, he was actually looking back. So he's actually watching the stream as it happens to right here. what other people have actually gone to the pits for strategy. Well, for Valero's sake, we can tell by our timing screen right now, about more than half the field have actually come to the pits. The only ones who haven't are Zampolini, State, Dean, Chico, and Valero himself. So these are the guys that have actually tempted fate here by trying to stay out as long as they could, hoping that the rain was not sufficient enough to actually warrant changing onto the wet weather tires, and saves them a boatload of time, which is what is being done right now as Valero. Then about 11 seconds in front of, no, 12 seconds in front of Chico, with Dean, State, and Zampolini also comfortably in the top 5 right now.
And look at that. So a lot of these drivers already over 5 seconds slower as the rain keeps pouring down. But like we said, we will have to see exactly how that is going to play in here. So about 5 drivers still out on the field, like you mentioned. Yeah, the strategy right here is possibly what's going to make or break the win for some of these people. We see there, chat thanking Amir for explaining in detail. I love coming out here with Amir. I feel like some of the best commentary out here. But anyways, chat loves you. I love you, Amir. It's always great to work with you out here, especially when we have stuff like this going on. We've got a lot of stuff. It started off clear during qualifying. Heat number 1, it started getting a little bit cloudy, track pulling down, and now heat number 2, the skies have opened up. Looking at that great onboard shot from the vehicle, you can definitely just see how much the rain can get in the way of these drivers. So speaking of that, we have, another event going on as well this weekend, being the 6 hours of the Watkins Glen. I got to run that early this morning, and I will just tell you, once that rain comes in, that can shake things up like crazy. So some drivers prefer the rain over the dry, so they may be a little bit faster in the rain than some other drivers. Some of the people, I would probably fall into that category. Once the rain starts, I get excited. I love the challenge of the rain. I feel like the rain definitely the great equalizer, especially being so new to iRacing.
Indeed, and the fact that the Tempest weather system is still not 100% being known yet to these drivers, and from testimonies I've heard from other iRacers that have done real-world driving, they say that the wet weather in iRacing is pretty much the most spot on, because you can go offline, off the racing line, what I mean is, and use the go-kart line around the outside to take up a bit of the rubber deposits. It works real well in iRacing as it does in real life, so really, you don't even have to stay on the racing line like most games. You can just go offline and drive as you would in real life in the wet. So amazing detail that has been put here in iRacing.
And that's one thing like we've seen out here. So Gael Valero still yet to change tires. So we'll have to see as, oh no, Jackson Senjay going a little bit to the outside, getting a little bit caught up. That could have been a really bad slide out, but he was able to save that, stay back on track, and stay ahead of Evandro Dantas. So a little bit of a thing that'll wake you up whenever you have those little bit of accidents or those little bit of mistakes. You're just waiting for the person behind you to, accidentally run into you, something like that. But now, Gael Valero, Martin Chico, as you can see on the timing, that red means that they are pretty much a lap up. So they're already on the next lap. As we speak about Jackson Senja getting a little bit squirrely right there too. So getting really, really close. It's definitely a slip and slide out here, guys, for sure.
What a save. He actually was on the AstroTurf on the outside there coming to the corner. I thought he was going to lose it, but despite not having a round wheel, he's running the ribbon wheel, as we call it, or the bow tie wheel. Manages to keep a hold of that. That was an amazing save. I think that will probably be save of the season thus far.
All right, they're just showing why Jackson Senjay is a seasoned veteran right there by that save. So he's able to not only show how fast he can be out here, but hey, it's things like that that keep you from ending up out of the race. But looking now, we see Pedro Dean, Martin Chico also having a battle going on, as well as Pedro Mura, Josh Perween. So a lot of these guys out here seeing once again now some of the drivers towards the front of the pack, still yet to pit, still on the dry tires. So we expect a little bit more slip and slide going out of them, and as well some of these drivers that are a little bit further behind, the gap is slowly closing in as we're just over halfway through heat number 2.
Oof. Oh, Perwin with a big dive there on the inside of Pedro Mora. He was actually quite late in jumping in on the inside there. He caught Mora napping, manages to get through Budge's way into the inside and take the position. So that will be P6 for Perwin and P7 for Mora, as we see what happened to Pedro Dean. No wonder he lost about 10 seconds that previous lap, he apparently just lost it on one of the puddles. It was standing water, just aquaplaned off the track.
Right there too. So that's the other thing that, yeah, with the Tempest system. So, you know, not only is it pretty good with keeping, you know, the wet line, the dry line, seeing where the rubber is laid down, but also a lot of these tracks being laser scanned in, the puddles are very real. So once you hit a little bit of standing water, that can be very, very sketchy. And like we just seen with Pedro Dean, unfortunately, send you into a spin out of nowhere. The other thing is we see some of these drivers still playing a little bit risky. The other thing you got to look out for is on those curbs and also the painted lines. So your tires go on those and you're, you know, in your braking zone or you're trying to throttle out of a corner, you touch that white line, you can very well also end up into a spin. Unfortunately, that is what happened to me during my one of my stints of the 6 hours of the Glen this morning. So I can tell you guys firsthand, you know, you got to watch out for those track limits out here in the rain.
Indeed, that's even more so when it's in the wet conditions like this, where standing water is not only on the track but also on the outside, and those painted lines on the curbs may just be also your race ender, as what Pedro Dean found out. In fact, he's come to the pits here to just change tires, so he becomes the next driver to pit, which leaves only Tim State, Zampolini, Chico and Valero, the only guys who have not stopped yet. And look at that. That has actually paid dividends big time for them because they got plenty of time in the pocket. The first of the guys who have pitted leading the line is Powen, and he's still about 16 seconds behind Tim State. So State then, he's in a good condition here right now to take his best finish of the entire season so far. But knowing how Powen is actually chomping at the bit in that gap, he might not be able to rest easy for a little while more.
So looking at that too, so Gael Valero still holding off a great lead. Look, about 13 seconds in front of Martin Chico. So the leaders of the pack are spread out quite a bit, but nonetheless, like I said, there's always a great battle going on no matter where. Any AMX race at nearly any time, you can find a battle. As we see right here, Josh Perween still doing an excellent job trying to hold off Pedro Mura, and Victor Miranda slowly behind them as well. So Josh Perween has a bit of a gap to catch up if he wants to catch up to Tim State. As we've seen right now, Tim State, so having an unfortunate heat number one, is now sitting in fourth place about 2/3 of the way through this heat number two. So we'll have to see. This is a great performance from all of our drivers, and we love to see the strategies paying off for these guys out here.
Absolutely, Kevin. And the fact that, case in point about the strategies, it looks as though the guys who actually pitted may have more grip on the road right now. But in terms of lap time, it's not much different. In fact, we compared Valero's lap time last time. It was a 52 flat to the guys who pitted like Powen. It was a 53.1. So really, there's not much difference in terms of hitting in with full wet weather tires or slicks. You can still hang it out there. So for those guys who pitted, I think they might have pulled the trigger a bit too early.
Yeah, that too, especially, well, I mean, just being a little bit slower and wearing those tires faster. Those guys that pitted right away before the downfall of the rain was coming in hot. So that's one thing too to keep in mind is, even though, hey, you want to get the jump on it, get some of those wet tires in before you get caught in the rain, it'll also slow you down just a little bit, or also just burn through those tires for when you really need them right now towards the end of your stint. So right now we can see Pedro Mura, Victor Miranda, and Josh Perween all still doing a great job. I think this is going to be the battle for the rest of the one to keep your eyes out on. But also, speaking of that, right now it looks like still from earlier on, Josh Perween able to hold on to the fastest lap time so far. So it was a little bit drier. He was nearly a whole 10 seconds faster. So that seems to be about the pace right now. A lot of these drivers about 7 to 10 seconds slower in the rain than when they were in the dry.
As you can see, that's the fastest lap time. And case in point, what you said, when they set their fastest lap time, we saw previously it was about a 41-ish from the fastest lap of the race. Now it's into the 43s. So really, it does put into perspective that the rain does make a bit of a difference here, but not so much to the point that you have to actually pit in for white weather tires. These cars don't really have that much horsepower to warrant a change of tires here that will cause you to slip and slide. So really, it was better to just stay out. And for Valero, Chico, Zampolini and State, that has paid dividends for them. But Powen, with the wet weather tires, he's signed in fast lap, so at least he has a couple of dollars in hand here and points for that one. But in terms of the overall results, it may not be coming to fruition because he is now battling here for just P5.
So right there we can see right here in the rain. So this is what it comes down to. These drivers door to door going into turn number 1. Who is going to have enough grip? So now too, like we said, mentioned earlier, hey, if these drivers, they're taking a little bit different line, not quite the optimal racing line, that is because the Tempest system does take into account where that rubber has worn into the track. So you don't want to stay on that rubber in the braking zone. That's one thing I've learned the hard way as well out here in iRacing is if you are on the normal racing line and you there's a lot of rubber laid down on the track, you stomp on that brakes going into a tight hairpin, you are going off the track into the wall. So these drivers showing great discipline, great throttle management, as well as being able to just hold it. So right now, see on board Josh Perween right behind Victor Miranda. So this 5th place battle going on right now here, number 2. We only have about a lap and a half left of these guys going. So once again, some of those guys out in the very front of the pack chose not to pit, chose to stay out on the dry tires, and it looks like that will definitely work in their favor.
Yep, and someone's asking why Valero and Chico's names are in red. I'm not too sure either 100% why, because sometimes that denotes a change in position, because when someone gets up a place, it turns green, and the guy who loses a place turns red. So that might just be a bit of an oddity in terms of how the timing sectors are being recorded right now. But make no mistake, Valero and Chico are still up in front here, with Zampolini in 3rd and State in 4th. The only drivers the entire heat to have not made a pit stop, and there's still about a lap to go here after this to settle the race here. As you can see, in terms of previous lap times, Owen still holds the fastest lap, no, not previous lap time, no, overall fastest lap of the race, 43.8. And compared to when Chico crossed lane was a 53 flat. So the wet weather really has wreaked havoc into the amount of how fast they can go in this race right now. 10 seconds the difference between the pace that Perwin said is his fastest lap and his previous lap.
So right there, yeah, we see 15 seconds between Gael Valero and Martin Chico, another 18 seconds between Martin Chico and Zamperlini, and 32 seconds between Zamperlini and Tim State. So, like we've seen, Tim State having that unfortunate incident early on, heat number 1. Here in heat number 2, chose to stay on the slicks, and that just goes to show that, you know, a lot of these guys out here, they, even if they're not the fastest driver, the strategy definitely plays a huge part. So, the racecraft, the speed, everything all playing into it. As we see Gael Valero right now getting the white flag, lap number 12 of 12 in race 13, heat number 2. So almost closing it out. Gael Valero looking like he has this one in the bag, just has to keep it clean. As we see the track brightening up just a little bit, so the sun may be starting to come out as the rain starts to ease up just the slightest. But, ooh, speaking of that, oh no, Tim State looks like he got a little bit of a slip and slide out there and ended up off the track. So, man, Tim State doing such a great job out there, was holding on to that 4th place position for a while. Now back to 9th place as we see a lot of the other drivers passing him by.
That would have been on for his best ever result in AMX, I would say, because that would have been a top 5 finish. How that will be a turn up for the books if he managed to do so. But unfortunately, last lap, on the penultimate lap for him, it came undone, and that is such a real shame for him. But we might just see him in future races here. A good result definitely will still be on the cards somewhere, somehow later on. But at the front, Gael Valero, who has been untouched and he's still on dry tires in a wet circuit, manages to keep it going in the right direction, and with an emphatic victory up in front. As a bit of a visual glitch there, even that wouldn't be enough to stop him here, Kevin.
So that just goes to show right there, Gael Valero, if one thing that we can say about him is that he is consistent. So he's consistent and can definitely come back from an unfortunate heat number 1, get the bounce back. So Gael Valero doing great, as we see now the back of the pack, some of these guys too, as Gael Valero taking advantage of the rain, getting the slip and slide, doing a little drift across the line. So it's all smiles from him right now. Like we said, you know, he wasn't too happy with how heat number 1 went, but he is excited right now as we see the battle of the heat number 2, the battle of the day perhaps, Victor Miranda, Josh Perween. So Josh Perween has been doing excellent job out here all day long in these GR86 Cup cars. So Victor Miranda just edging him out slightly. but we'll have to see if Josh Perween is able to do it. We know Victor Miranda has the pace, but that was in the dry. He was absolutely dominating. So now that is in the wet. Like I said, the rain sometimes can be the great equalizer. We'll see if Victor Miranda is able to hold on to it.
Oh, I think Perwin may have actually almost misjudged it there, because I thought he was going to go into the back of Miranda. Only has one corner left. That was his last prime overtaking spot. Now he has to pressure Miranda into a mistake coming into the final corner. Looks as though Miranda just about hangs on to P4.
And we can see the great battles of the middle of the pack as we've seen now. Jackson Senji also up another position over Pedro Mura. So it's looking right now, you're 1, 2, 3, Valero, Chico, Zamperlini, the guys that chose to not go to the pits, not get the wet tires, able to hold on to it. It did play in their favor. They were not spitting out too much. Tim State was along that, up in 4th position, but unfortunately, near the final lap, he spun out and there had to go towards the back of the pack. As we see right now, Tim State, great job in heat number 2. And like we said, I feel like as we see him go on and on, he only gets better and better, giving up better results each time. Like we said, right now, we'll have to see. But that is heat number 2 of race 13 as the final couple of drivers coming down the straight. We'll have to get the official results here in a couple of seconds.
Yep. A good result for a lot of these guys, especially the likes of Tim State. Might just be around the corner. For Diego Villarreal, he had a very tough day, didn't he? Because it wasn't really the best performance from him after getting taken out in the first heat. Second heat didn't fare any better. Pedro Dean likewise. We saw him at the front, but then he had to drop back. As Gar Valero is not even in his rig right now. He's in fact jumped over to his second PC to probably check out some comments, or probably going to do an interview from there. But whatever it is, he is your BenQ session winner for heat number 2. And that really proved that he will be happy with that result, because it was a masterful decision to not pit in for a new fresh set of wet weather tires and just continued on with the dry sets in the wet conditions and still managed to just hold on to that one.
So like I said, Gael Valero sitting in that top spot, followed by Martin Chico, second, Fabio Zamperlini, third place. Victor Miranda was also doing a great job out there. He was fastest in qualifying and also heat number 1 winner, able to make it all the way through the pack, even with that tire change, getting him up into 4th place. Josh Perween also doing a great job here, getting the fastest lap and coming in 5th position. Jackson Senjay 6th, Pedro Mura 7th, Gaston Kulavian 8th, Banjo Dantas 9th, Vinicius Dean 10th, Tim State unfortunately going from 4th down to that 11th place position. Diego Burrell in 12th and rounding out in 13th, Pedro Dean. So like I said, a lot of these guys, unfortunately, few incidences that are unavoidable can just send you from the front to the back. A few things going on with the rain, able to let these guys get from the back to the front. So everything great, a great heat number 2 and a great race number 13 as well. So man, this is amazing. So Victor Miranda, Gael Valero, some of your biggest winners of the day. Qualifying heat number 1, heat number 2. I love these guys putting on a show, especially put on a show in the rain.
Certainly. And there was shades of Alain Prost there for Gar Valero, because again, it was the thinking man's race, wasn't it? You just had to know when to pull the trigger to come to the pits, or is just being like Texas Hold'em poker, where you hold and hold and hold until you had the right hand and just went for it. So Valero went for the latter, and that paid off big time for him.
So looks like we do have one of the drivers, so our heat number 2 winner. And also, like we said, one of the guys that the strategy really came into place here, Gael Valero. We'll be talking to him very soon in the interview room. So here momentarily, let's see what was going through the mind of Gael Valero.
Alright then, so here we are in the interview room for AMX 5 Race 13, and your Heat 2 winner, Gael Valero. So bonsoir, Gael. It looked as though the GR86 car was probably not going to be high up as your list of favorite cars, but you did get that win in the end anyway. So first things first, how did that first heat went for you? Because of course you got taken out at the start. It looked as though you were going to focus straight on heat number 2.
What you mean? It's not my favorite. Like the car. Nice.
Okay, fair enough. Because it looked as though that maybe the pace wasn't really there, but at least you got a win in the end. So talk us through how it went for both heats, starting with heat number 1.
Nice. In this low speed cars, it's not about the pace, especially in qualifying. You see, there's a lot of draft trains, so these times are not very relevant. Well, it was fortunate. I was quite aggressive on the start because I knew like this is kind of pack racing, and when you have this kind of races, you have basically everybody is sticking together and not progressing in a lap. So you can, even if you make like a mistake, like I guess I sort of did, you can still catch up. But unfortunately, I had a spinning car in front of me and I got the mid-ball flag. So I focused back on getting the fastest lap instead.
Indeed, and it looks as though you might have been... no, actually, you were... Unfortunately, that first heat you weren't successful because Miranda managed to get that. But moving on to heat number 2, that was really when we really need to talk to you on this. What compelled you to actually stay out in the wet weather conditions when the logical option was to go onto the wets, but you stuck out with the dries anyway? Was there pace in there that you knew of, or did you just go for it?
You have false information, Amir. Because I started with the wets.
There you go. Okay.
I have to look at the forecast. The forecast says 100% rain. You put the rain. Yeah, it actually was coming quite like not instantly, but it needed a couple of laps. That's why I had a competition behind, and then as soon as the rain started, competition is gone.
Okay, that's a genius move, because no wonder, because we're looking at the timing screen, your pace was relatively similar to the guys who were behind. We thought, wow, that might have been the dry tires, but again, our timing screen doesn't show the compounds of tires that are put on, but really brave move from there to hold out until the rain started. And once again, Trebian, really good race, and hopefully we can see you in future AMX races.
The one that's coming?
Of course, yes. Alright, okay. And Sebo, let's see what you can do in the next one.
This is so much French for me, even for a Frenchman. You can't keep doing this.
Apologies there, man. Alright, we'll see you in the next one, and hopefully you will definitely be right up in the timing sheet. So thank you, and see you in then.
Yeah.
And there you heard it from the from the AMX veteran himself, Gael Valero. So looks like what we thought was a lot of the drivers staying on dries. Looks like they in between heats ended up switching to the wets right away. So like we said, hopefully all these guys out there with their timing overlays, guys can switch it up so we know exactly what tire compounds exactly at what time. I know they do that with some of the Formula cars. You see your reds, your yellows, different things like that. But nonetheless, like we said, a great race out here today. Oh, excuse me, as I'm losing my voice a little bit. But yeah, a great race, great showmanship. But like we said, that will do it for this race. Don't go anywhere, as we're going to be headed back into the GT4 cars. So going to be a great full day of packed racing out here on AMX. Make sure to follow all of our socials, as well as head over to amxrace.com for the full schedule. So we will see you all in a few minutes.
get it off your chest instead of keeping it stuck in your head. You don't need a cross to bear. I just want you to know if you're out of control in the hurricane. I'll open the door coming from the rain. You know that it's not ever here to stay. Yeah, we've done it before, we'll do it again. Don't reach for the lighter to start up a fire, thinking there's not any other way. Stop believing the liar that's living inside you. When you feel the wave crashing, can't escape, let it ricochet. Let it ricochet. Let it ricochet. When you feel the wave crashing, can't escape, let it ricochet. Let it ricochet. Let it ricochet.
Big accident there. I think that was Pedro D. He's just gone off. Whoa, in the carousel immediately. He gets punted off. That was San Pedro. Aguilar, he's gone off. He's been tapped and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin. Oh,
and-
no.
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lallum does have the inside track, but it's just left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they're coming to the right hand. And this is it. Chris Lallum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lallum takes it.
to save our home, we must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Big accident there. I think that was Petronine. He's just gone off. Whoa, in the carousel immediately. He gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone off. He's been tapped and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin. Oh,
and-
no.
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lallum does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand, and this is it. Chris Lallum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lallum takes it.
Leaving Germany now, coming out over to Italy. We are going out to the Misano World Circuit. Welcome back, everybody. We are halfway through our race day out here for AMX Season 5, AMX Sim Racing World Championship. So once again, for those of you just tuning in, I am Kevin. Alongside me today is Amir. And Amir, it was an absolute great race number 1 of the day in the GR86 Cup cars. And today, we're keeping it a little bit different today. So we're not going to any crazy high horsepower cars. We're staying in the GT4. So a lot of the guys already see on track that were here earlier, now making their way out to qualifying. I'm just going to say right now, so knowing how race number 1 went, are you going to have any predictions for race number 2 of today?
Oof, hard to say, Kevin, because again, it might be same-ish type of cars, rear-wheel drive, front engine, some of them, but the racing might just be about similar in terms of how it's going to go. So again, may the best man win, but you can always pick out at least a few names that I had, likes of Miranda, Resende, and of course Guy Valero, who we saw just now won in heat number 2. He'll be up in the front, but make no mistake, there will be some dark horses here, especially the likes of Alberto Senao, who we've not seen before. He might be able to spring his prize, so we'll just let the races play out as it is.
Awesome. We'll have to just see what these drivers can do out here. So like we said, GR86 going into GT4, a little bit more horsepower, a little bit faster racing, but still going to be great. So everyone tuning in, make sure to follow all of our social media that is on the screen right now, as well as check over on amxrace.com. You can see our full schedule, everything else that's going on. But before we get into today's qualifying, we have a few things going on this season. Like we always say, very similar format to season 4 with a couple minor changes. So let's get right into those. Knowing today, one of the biggest things that we've seen for season 5 is now season 5, AMX 5 instead of AMX 10. We've been here since May 25th, and we're going all the way through August 18th with a season prize pool this season of $15,000 and next level racing gear. The race goes as follows. We have our 20-minute qualifier, followed by a top 15 reverse grid going into a 20-minute heat number 1, then reversing the grid once again into that final heat number 2. So for everyone out there, whether you want to join or if you're already in the race, your driver cam is required. Go to the link on our AMX Discord or over to our website. Payouts are done every $100 each month. So once you hit that $100 threshold, expect some money to head your way. We're here every Saturday and Sunday this season. And like I said, if you want to get all the info, you want to get in on the races, head over to amxrace.com anytime and get signed up there. So our schedule's pretty similar to what it's been. Saturdays and Sundays starting at 5:50 p.m., followed by the second race at 7:20 p.m. And this season, we're doing every other week, throwing in AMX 0 on Sunday at 5:50 p.m., followed by AMX 20 at 7 o'clock p.m. So AMX 20 new for this season, and as well as every other weekend on the off weekends, we're out in Assetto Corsa Competizione on Sundays as well. So make sure to get the full schedule, get in here, come race, come watch, share it with your friends, your family. The more the merrier. We love having as many people. It's always a great time. But coming up now, our prize pool again for season 5. First place going to be walking away $15 in qualifying. Second, 10. A third gets a 9 all the way down. Top 15 drivers then going into that reverse grid for heat number 1. Heat number 1 is similar. First place walking away with 15. Second getting $10. Third, $9, and so on with your heat number 1 and heat number 2. Fastest lap getting an extra couple of dollars, couple points headed their way, with a total prize pool per race of $250. But keep in mind, if you want to join in on these, you must have a minimum iRating of 2,000 to get involved in these AMX 5 races. So again, if you do want to get in here, we do have a season pass going on right now. So get yourself in there, save some money, 40% to be exact, for AMX 5 iRacing, AMX 5 Assetto Corsa Competizione, as well as the all-new AMX 20. So once again, visit amxrace.com, get signed up, get some money saved by getting a season pass. And like we mentioned earlier, so we have today pretty good combination in my opinion out at the Misano World Circuit. So Amir, tell the lovely folks a little bit more about what we're going to be doing here in this race number 2.
Yep, certainly, Kevin. As we can see there, the lovely circuit in the background, which has been reprofiled since the olden days when it was opened in 1972. But the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, or better known back then as just the Circuit Internacional Santa Monica Misano, is a track that we can safely say it typifies the modern day experience. But underneath underneath it all, it can be considered a bit dangerous back in the old days. You know, Wayne Rainey, MotoGP rider, he was paralyzed here. We had a terrible crash in Moto2 back in 2010. But regardless, the circuit has been made much safer now. And for GT4 cars around here, it's a great combination. And we're going to use all 4.2 kilometers of it here and running in the clockwise direction. That's with the where and the what we're racing on right now. Well, we saw it just now in the pre-face as well. It's the lovely FIA Group GT4 cars. They are a step below FIA Group GT3, but regardless of that, will be a nice combination to run on. 350 horses to 500, so you can tell one of those cars is lower than the others, but BOP will help sort that out. Rear wheel drive, as we mentioned before, 1.3 to 1.4 tons, and drivers had to take their wheels off the pedal, off the steering wheel. It'll be flappy pedal gearboxes all the way for these things, ranging from 5 different manufacturers: Aston Martin, Mercedes, Porsche, McLaren, and BMW to round off the list. It really is the starting point for some drivers who want to make it into the pro leagues in GT racing, and the GT4 class will be that such league that will really be good as a stepping stone. So then, that's the cars and tracks out of the way. Now we're gonna get ready for qualifying now, aren't we, Kevin?
Yes, and I expect it to be another good one, like we said, from the first race of the day. Some great battles going on, door to door, literally banging, bumping. Some people going off track, some people pushing it hard. We had a little bit of rain going on that shook things up as well. But today out here, it's looking partly cloudy, about 25 degrees Celsius outside. Track's pretty warm at about 52 degrees Celsius. So out there, like we said, very sunny. The track's a little bit warm out here at Misano. And we can see right here one of the drivers that maybe not his best race on the last one, but is currently leading out here. Jackson SNJ in the number 99 Porsche GT4 car. So far, currently setting the best time of a 1:43.025. So Jackson SNJ coming out of the gate hot and laying down a quick lap time. But like we said, we have a lot of familiar names out here today. A lot of them we've seen earlier on today, as well as, you know, we have a couple people. One, like we said, Alberto Senel, who was not in our earlier race, but let's see if that he has the focus out here in the second race. I'm really going to love to see what he puts on the show out here today and shake up the grid a little bit. So we love seeing a lot of guys get back-to-back wins. We like seeing a lot of guys being very consistent towards the top, but we like to see a lot of people also, you know, make them fight for that podium.
Yeah, but especially the new names out of the hat who have probably competed in previous seasons and races, but have not come to the fore just yet. We'll love to see them do that too. And we were pointing out Senao earlier, so let's see what we can hope to. Well, let's see what he can actually do in today's qualifying session. As we can see on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, purple fastest session, green is personal best, what Tim State, and at one point just now, I think another driver was doing personal best here. While yellow means that the timing is not improved. So the likes of Valero, he's going to come around to do this as a sort of banker lap and then start immediately on a hot lap in the next one to improve his time. That, well, in fact, he has not set the time at all yet. So we have not seen what Gael Valero is capable of here just yet.
And I was seeing some of the people in chat earlier. They're just talking about here at Misano that a lot of people not too familiar with it. One of the big reasons also, if you are a fan of iRacing, is that this track was recently introduced about 3 months ago. So in the last season, this is one of the tracks that iRacing added. So it's fairly new to a lot of these drivers out here, which again should be very interesting compared to some of the more popular tracks that these guys know like the back of their hand. So again, definitely should see what gets shaken up on the grid out here today. But as well, the Misano World Circuit, now named after Marco Simoncelli, the late MotoGP driver, which, again, like a lot of drivers that unfortunately pass away doing what they love, he was one of the very few MotoGP riders that was up there able to keep up with one of his dear friends, one of probably the best MotoGP drivers ever, and that I'm talking about is Valentino Rossi. So there is a tribute out there, so I'm sure a lot of you guys can find that video. You guys can see the heartfelt interviews, a lot of things. MotoGP lost a legend very soon, way too soon, with Marco Simoncelli. But nonetheless, back here in this track today, we're at the famous track that hopefully iRacing puts this track in a lot more places. So seeing the track map, the overview of the track, it has a little bit of an awkward shape. So a lot of people, like we said, some of these tracks that are used for both MotoGP as well as sports cars, some people, they tend to favor them more for the sports car side of things. Some people tend to like them a bit more for MotoGP. This is one that I feel like is a very balanced track so far.
Indeed, and talking about Simoncelli, how he was a legend in the making, but we lost him dearly too soon. And coincidentally, he lost his life at a circuit where it's very close to where I'm living right now in Malaysia. So it's quite unfortunate that my country is entwined with his story towards the end. But regardless, safety has greatly improved since what happened to Simoncelli, and hopefully we don't see accidents like what befell him in the future. And tracks like named after his honor, this one, have been improved greatly with a lot of runoff that accommodates both cars and bikes alike. And that's why I think this circuit, you said just now, you prefaced how it kind of has a different crowd. Some people like it for the car side, some people like it for the bike side. I think it works well for both because lots of empty space on the outside here for bike to crash, and for the cars, you can actually still save the car even if you're going offline. So really, it's a great circuit. I like it personally, and I'm glad that iRacing has it as well because it really is the epitome of modern circuit design.
And speaking of iRacing adding new tracks, there's another one this season as well with the Sachsenring. So a lot of people also know that one for the MotoGP. So iRacing starting to get out here. You know, they obviously have a lot of very, very popular tracks, some of the most popular tracks in the world. But now they're starting to include a bit more from the MotoGP side. So a lot of people very excited to have a little bit more representation. Although we're not, you know, obviously racing any bikes out here, but just to have these tracks, they are legendary tracks in their own sense. So right now we can see, though, as we are back on board with Gael Valero, had an excellent race number one earlier on today. Right now has yet to set an official lap time. So he has about 7 minutes left in this qualifying heat to be able to set a lap time. And like I said, him as well as Sanao, the two drivers still yet to set down an official lap time. So we'll just have to wait and see from them. As we see now, Tim State sitting in that 7th position. He was in 6th, but just got overtaken by Evandro Dantes. So Tim State now currently in 7th position. We'll see how he fares out here. Of course, the resident VR driver, you can see him on the bottom left hand of your screen. Give a big shout out to Tim State, doing great on the last heat of the last race, and had an unfortunate spin out. Looked like 4th place. He was doing great, and then you know, just that rain sometimes. Once you get a little too comfortable in the rain, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. In Tim's case, he unfortunately ended up spinning out and going back down. So he's looking for redemption today, as well as Victor Miranda, who was looking for the Triple Crown earlier today. He was best in qualifying for the race number one. We'll see. He's looking to make it best in qualifying out here in the GT4 cars as well.
Yeah, certainly. And once again, coming to the fore here with a sort of drivetrain that really kind of suits his style, isn't it? A front-engine rear-wheel drive car. Yes, the GR86 just now was a much slower breed, but the Aston Martin really does show what it's capable of in his hands. And right now, 2/10 faster, almost 2/10 faster than the rest of the field is proof of that. Miranda in front of Rezende, that's the Brazilian 1-2, and make it 3 because Pedro not for that far behind. The Tony Kanaan boys up in front right now. On board with Villarreal, he's last on the leaderboard at the moment of 45.8, but waiting for Sanao and Valero to come through their lap times as well in the final 5 minutes.
So it's looking pretty good. Diego Villarreal having a few unfortunate incidences last time as well. So also another driver out here looking for his redemption. Race number 14. Man, I can't believe that we're already in race number 14. I mean, it's only been a few weeks, but just seeing a lot of these drivers that we have out on the track regularly. Man, Diego Villarreal, been here for a very long time. One of the fan favorites, also an AMX veteran.
Yeah, a lot of great support for Villarreal in the comments as well, and a lot of the other guys too. Really love to see that drivers with their friends and teammates, and of course the guys in the comment section willing them on in their support. It just makes it a great place to watch, and for those who are taking part to feel the love that they're getting here on the circuit. And for a lot of these guys, especially like Villarreal, it's no different. But can he actually deliver on that is another matter. We'll wait and see what he can do here right now in this final couple of minutes in qualifying that he has left.
So right now we are on 16 and a half minutes into this 20-minute qualifying. So, like you said, Villarreal, and I'm looking at the timing screen as well. Gael Valero able to go up, Martin Chico. So, with just a few minutes left, these drivers are getting faster and faster, getting a little bit more comfortable with the track. Although it is a very hot track out today, that isn't setting these drivers, setting them back from setting some absolutely blazing lap times, especially now. Victor Miranda right now looks like he is about 0.18 seconds in front of Jackson Senji. So we have the two Brazilian drivers, two Tony Kanaan esports drivers as well, up there in the number 1 and number 2 spot.
Indeed, and they were actually helping each other out with the tow just now, so I think Resende was the one in front that gave Miranda the tow. And I'm checking the car again. Yep, it was Miranda in the Aston Martin and Resende the Porsche. So Resende actually helped Miranda first with the tow, then after that Miranda returned the favor, and that's why they're actually high up right now at 42, or the only two drivers in the 42s in fact. So the tow really is powerful out here, especially on that back straight. There's two major straights at the circuit, this one and then the back straight coming into the Kings, but even with that slight aerodynamic draft is enough to actually get some lap time out of it.
And just looking at the timing now, it looks like Alberto Sanao still hasn't set a lap time, so I'm wondering if he may have left this race or if he will be back in time to make it into heat number 1. So we'll have to wait and see from him. But right now it's sitting Victor Miranda, number 1 spot, followed by Jackson Senji and Martin Chico in 3rd place. So we'll have to see with how fast these drivers are so far, that might just be where the order sets up. We have a few drivers towards the middle of the pack. We know they have some pace in them still as they're still getting comfortable, but it looks like we'll have just enough time to set about one more lap from these guys that are just coming across the start-finish line. As you can see there, our driver spotlight, Victor Miranda, of course, Texaco Racing by Tony Kanaan. So this guy, we've seen all season long so far, him just putting on an absolutely spectacular show for everyone, just showing why he is part of one of Brazil's best esports teams. So everyone knows Tony Kanaan famously, especially out here in the US where I'm at with IndyCar racing. So Tony Kanaan, one of the great legends and a lot of great drivers for Kanaan Esports as well.
Yep, certainly an Indy 500 winner, of course. Really love to see how a lot of real world guys get involved in sim racing, and Tony Kanaan is certainly no slouch either. He's one of those guys that believes in it, and he's actually put in a lot of effort into this. Just look at how every single round, when you see some of the Tony Kanaan boys run the cars, they run exactly in the livery, so it makes them really recognizable and does show the amount of seriousness that is put into here. As you can see, speaking of serious pace, there's Miranda and Resende improving their times. 42.4 for Miranda and 42.5 for Resende. They both improved in the final seconds of qualifying here, Kevin.
As we can see right now coming across the line, also Pedro Dean looking to improve on his lap time, currently sitting in 4th place. Unfortunately does not, as you see him flying off the track into the wall. So that's a good thing about the virtual thing though. So it'll be reset into heat number 1. So right there's some pretty good qualifying from a lot of these guys. Like we said, this track is fairly new to iRacing, so there's still a lot of guys filling it out, really trying to see where they can push it, gain those precious tenths, even hundreds, thousandths of a second. But right now it's looking like Victor Miranda once again setting the #1 spot in the qualifying, followed closely by Jackson SNJ in second place, Martin Chico in third, Gael Valero fourth place, followed by Pedro Dean in fifth, Gaston Culavi sixth, Ivandro Dantas in seventh, Tim State in eighth, Diego Villarreal ninth place, and right now rounding it out, which Alberto Sanel not setting a time in qualifying. So we'll have to see if he makes it to the grid or if he is actually going to be out of this race. So moments away, our drivers are getting ready to grid up as we go into heat #1. Once again, this qualifying result that you see, we will have the reverse grid going into heat #1. So Diego Villarreal not having the best qualifying at this track too, but we know that he is one of those drivers, as we've seen this season and previous seasons, that once he's able to get up there, he's going to do his darn best to defend against as well. We have Tim State towards the front, Evandro Dantas. So let's see if Victor Miranda is going to be able to once again make his way all the way from the back of the pack into that first place, or if some of these other guys and these drivers will be able to defend him and say, you know what, not today. We're not going to let you be getting the back-to-back wins all day long.
Indeed. And he's got other people to worry about, including his teammate Resende in front, but Chico and Valero as well. So those three guys involved are gonna give him a run for his money, as well as Pedro Dean. So it's not easy pickings up in front. You can see all four drivers, the main protagonists on camera. That's Chico on the top. Below him is Valero, who's having a bit of a snack before the start of a race, and below him is Resende, and after that it is Pedro Dean. So that's the main protagonist for this particular heat. Let's see how it goes. In fact, we're going to go for a very long formation lap before we are going to go racing, because it's a rolling start here, Kevin.
Yeah, so as these guys are following the Porsche safety car, getting some heat in those tires, some heat in the brakes. Like I said, I love watching these drivers' reactions, especially, hey, when they're not in the midst of battle, they're not focused entirely. Like you see, Elvilla are getting a little bit of a snack there, and a big wave to all the people out there. We see on camera, we see you. We love having the families out here support each other, so that's another great thing out here. A lot of these drivers, although they have their teammates cheering them on as well, they also have their friends and family. So big shout out to everyone, all the friends and family out there watching and supporting. We love you guys, and it's great to be out here with some of the best sim racers in the world, in my opinion. Some of the top teams, some of the top talent. We love having you guys out here for AMX.
Indeed. And of course, they likewise love to be here competing and really showing what it's like to drive among some of the world's best on the iRacing platform. So there we go. That's Chico acknowledging the commentary that we've been giving him, and the rest of the family on board, the Chico family watching us. That's really nice to see here. Nice touch there from Martin.
So with probably what might hold the record for the longest formation lap of AMX this season, we have just a reminder too of you guys, if you want to get in here, like we said, some of the grids like today, there is plenty of room for that prize money to be dished out. So once again, head over to amxrace.com. Feel free to get the full schedule. If there's a race, car, combination, anything you like, or you just want to get in here, have some fun, be competing with some of the best. We love having new drivers in here any chance that we get. So just a reminder, AMX 5, minimum 2,000 I rating. If you are 2,000 or up, get in here, come give these guys a run for the money, and we will hopefully see you soon. But if not, we also love seeing you guys out there on the stream too. So everyone in the stream, we have a lot of guys showing up every single weekend. We wouldn't be doing it without you guys either. So glad to have you here, both on YouTube and Twitch. Make sure you are subscribed, followed, as well as follow all of our socials. So from time to time, while I'm out here shouting out plugs, from time to time, we do have the live timing pop up on screen. So scan that QR code and you can see what we're seeing up here in the booth as well. Seeing who's setting the fastest lap times when, what order is changing, all of the details. So go ahead and scan that QR code and follow along at home.
Yeah, and of course we also have not only the YouTube comments, but also the Twitch comments coming by periodically every now and then. So it's nice to see a lot of involvement from the community. Now, The long formation lap is going to come to an end. We're going to go green here, Kevin.
All right, so here we come. And these guys are going green. Diego Villarreal getting a great start off of that. So we'll see if he's able to hold it on as these guys going too wide into there. Oh no, we have a bit of a blinking back there. Not sure who that one is. I'll have to see the number on the side. But as we go into that, might have been Gael Valero out there in the Apex Racing vehicle. So yes, that was him. And we have got a spin. So Tim State getting knocked off in the Porsche, as well as Diego Villarreal getting caught up there too. So two drivers now ending up getting spun out, going to the back of the pack. I'm sure we'll have a replay of that coming on later on.
Yeah, that's again unfortunate for Tim State, involved in a needless accident, but probably because he was trying to give way, but some of the other drivers maybe also was thinking about the same thing, and the collision was almost inevitable. So he and Villarreal, your heart goes out to Villarreal, isn't it? Once again, not having the best of starts.
So right there, once again, that may be their heat number one in the bag. But again, that's why we have a heat number two with another reverse grid. But again, we're only 2 laps into this thing, so anything can happen as these drivers already starting to get in line, get a little bit of a train going on. So we have Gael Valero right now leading, so he's up 6 positions, as well as another person up 6 positions. Victor Miranda sitting in 4th place. So we know Victor Miranda looking to get into the podium once again. He's been doing it all season long, and I'm pretty sure he's going to continue to do it. So we see it right now. Martin Chico right here battling it out. Jackson Senjay, also Pedro Dean right behind him. So again, right here, battle of the pack. That is the beauty of these GT4 cars. Extremely close racing, no matter what track we have. As you see right there, looks like Danta's out into the grass just a little bit. So getting a little bit out of the track. Luckily, he did not spin out, able to rejoin safely.
And again, at the point that I alluded to earlier, that there's plenty of runoff for cars and bikes alike to just stretch their legs out a bit more than they are normally accustomed to. With tracks with gravel traps or barriers, you can just use a bit of escape road to get back into the action. And for Dantas, that was actually a case of one of them as well. But we're on board here with Pedro Dean. He may not be able to let Dantas rest for a bit longer because the 2 Brazilians battling here. It looks as though that Pedro Dean is the faster of the 2. Gets a good exit onto the back straight. Will he be able to overtake him? It will remain to be seen, because he needs to get in the slipstream and dive on the inside.
So right here, we do have 2 of the guys, like you said, Pedro Dean and Avancho Dantas, both of them running the Aston Martin GT4 car today. So a pretty good mix of cars out here today. It looks like the only lone BMW out on the track right now is that of Gael Valero, but we have a great mix of all the cars. And speaking of the GT4 cars, you know, it's every time that I see races like this that I really hope that iRacing is going to start introducing some more cars into the GT4 category. I know we have some real life ones that a lot of people are really liking, especially now with the Mustang GT3 car being all the hype in iRacing, all of the hype in Assetto Corsa Competizione, as well as in real life. Ford, this being their first year with sending their Ford Mustang GT3 car, so somewhat replacing the older Ford GTE car that is no longer being ran. So now Ford getting back into the GT3 category out here with the Mustang, as well as in real life they do have a Mustang GT4 car. So iRacing, anyone out there from iRacing listening to this, hey, I know a lot of people would love to have a Mustang GT4 car out here on the track. So one can hope, but right now looking like Victor Miranda putting up a great battle between himself and, well, I'm not sure how much of a battle because there is his teammate right behind him. So we'll have to see those 2 working together again, still early on in this heat number 1. But when push comes to shove, we'll see whichever one has the faster pace. They definitely will try to use it to catch up and get a place on the podium.
Yeah, especially the likes of Resende and Miranda. They're already on the rostrum here. One of them's off it, of course, because Miranda is occupying 3rd, Resende 4th. Let's see then if they could actually use that slipstream tactic that they had in qualifying and probably use it to their advantage in the heat itself here, with Kulhavi and Valero within earshot.
All right now, so it's looking like Gael Valero, Gaston Gulavi, Victor Miranda, currently your top 3. But once again, as we've seen time and time again, GT4 cars do not put anything past these drivers to really send it into some of these corners. So that's one great thing of when you have some lower horsepower cars like this, sometimes they can outbrake much more than they will get a run coming out of a corner. So expect these guys to really send it coming to these corners, really getting on there. As you can see right there, how close to the rear bumper of Kulavi that Victor Miranda really is. So whenever, like I said, you don't have too much power to be able to come out of these, it's really about momentum, keeping up that speed, being able to get as much entry speed as you can to be able to carry it over out of that corner. So right now, going into lap number 4, finishing out lap number 3, Gael Valero first, Gaston Kulavi second, and Victor Miranda in third place.
Yeah, as you said just now, momentum is all key in this car. You really do not want to scrub off so much speed. And once you get into the slipstream, it's a matter of trying to actually send it either inside or outside. But conversely, this is what Valero's trying to prevent them from doing by making his car as wide as possible as well. So again, racing is good, it's ebbing and flowing, but to expect any drastic maneuvers, it'll be up to the drivers here to do whether they want to do it or not.
And we can see the sector times down there towards the bottom of the screen. So it looked like Victor Miranda and Gaston Kulavi in some places, they do have a little bit better pace currently than Gael Valero. Just a reminder too of those guys setting amazing paces. So Victor Miranda already up 7 positions from the starting grid, now making it 8 positions. So Victor Miranda able to get the move, but no, looks like he will get spun out right there. So fortunately, Victor Miranda looking to make that move on the inside, holding on to the podium position, but runs off into the kitty litter.
Yeah, that might have been a slight lapse in judgment in terms of when he wanted to overtake there. I'm looking at the stream replay right now. You might say that Kulhavi had the line there, and unfortunately, so was Miranda trying to think he had the line and the door room around the outside, but he got spun around anyway, and that's unfortunate for him. He has it all to do again from P7.
And that too, speaking of replays, seen in the bottom right, what we just seen was the incident there at the beginning of the race. So we had 2 drivers, unfortunately, getting spun around. One of them looked like unfortunately spun out on his own, and then we seen Tim State get caught up. So always those lap 1 is definitely the most crazy time of the race. So right there, it's less about trying to get ahead as far as you can as it is just, hey, I don't want to end up in a crash. I want to save it for lap 2 to start really being able to battle it out and make it up on merit, make it up through getting down those fast lap times. But right now we have Evandro Dantas and Pedro Dean battling it out for 5th place, and Victor Miranda slightly behind Pedro Dean too. So about a 3-way battle right now for 5th place. Looking like this is going to be pretty crazy. So like again, we just seen Victor Miranda unfortunately going for the overtake, getting spun out, extending him back. So we know he has quite a bit of pace, but he'll have to wake his way back through Pedro Dean, Dantas, and Chico. He wants to get back up towards podium contention.
Yep, only about 6/10 behind Kulhavi. As you can see what happened to Miranda again. I saw in the stream replay, this is an alternate angle. Yeah, again, I think Miranda could have actually given the door open as, oh, there's an accident there.
So we see right there, unfortunately, yeah, Pedro Dean, we had a complete stop on the track. So 3 cars right there. Again, Victor Miranda, unfortunately, he's showing a lot of pace, but like we said, you cannot win on pace alone. One, you got to be able to see what those other drivers are doing. Sometimes you get caught up in it. Sometimes you get a bit aggressive and go into the other guys. So that too, replays all day long. I'm sure that's going to be another one to see exactly what led to that stoppage on the track right there. To see, again, that too. So one of the other things that I will send a reminder for everyone that you can see the little watermark in the top right. We do have the KARA stewards out here too. So trying to keep things fair, trying to make sure that, hey, what is to keep these drivers from playing dirty? Well, these guys are out here to help keep these drivers from playing dirty. So big thanks to them, a big shout out for them being here for AMX. They've done a lot of things, and I do not envy having to make some of these calls when things get a bit dicey out here.
Yeah, especially when we saw just now what happened with Miranda trying to overtake Kulhavi, and then Kulhavi was hanging around. Miranda tried to dive in. It's just 2 can't go to tango there. Yes, there's plenty of room, but then once one car is turning, the other one's actually holding his line. Well, that's what causes the big one. As we can see, speaking of big ones, here's what between Dean and Miranda while we were watching that replay. Oh, it's Dean again. Just misjudges his braking completely. Taps Dantas into a slight spin, and that also collected Miranda that somehow he couldn't actually thread the needle because the door was closing. But as it stands, you can see Miranda getting away from it, but he lost more than 10 seconds here trying to catch up with Valero Resende Kulhavi already checked out, I mean, up in front.
So yeah, that's the unfortunate part about that. And like we said, once again, this is a newer track, so a lot of these drivers, you know, it is still very fresh to them. They don't quite know it yet, like the back of their hand for a lot of people out here. So we can see that's definitely coming into play for some of these drivers. You can absolutely see who is a little bit more comfortable out here on track so far. Victor Miranda being one of those that's been setting absolutely blazing lap times and currently does have the fastest lap time of heat number 1. So we'll have to see. We know he has the pace. How much is he going to be able to do it as we catch back up with our leaders? Gael Valero trying to defend off Jackson Asensio, but Jackson Asensio taking the inside line right there, able to easily get that first place position from Gael Valero. So Gael trying to defend him and Jackson Asensio taking advantage of that opening.
Yeah, that was a sweet move there from Resende to actually just outwit Valero to get by. But we know how Valero is actually quite fast. He's not going to give that one up easily. And the other two behind, Kulhavi and Chico, also are going to watch brief. So it's 4 for the top 4.
We can see there, so Gael Valero was sitting down just a little bit during the qualifying, but like we said, once again, as the race goes on, these guys are only going to get faster and faster as they get more and more comfortable out here in these GT4 cars at Misano. So we can see right now another battle, third place, Martin Chico trying to hold off Gaston Kulhavi, only about half a second difference. And again, I love these beautiful shots right here when you have the 4 cars. Also along this back straightaway, a lot of these guys really taking advantage of that draft. So I expect to see a lot more moves trying to be set up once they're coming out of that. You know, we have a couple of large sweeping corners. Once again, this track is famously known for being a MotoGP track, and like a lot of MotoGP tracks, they have these giant sweeping turns. So I love the GT4 cars. I feel like it's a perfect combination when you're out here with these long sweeping corners.
Yeah, mostly I will agree to just ride a GT3 car around here because you can still get the production shell of the car, but with performance mightily underneath to carry around the circuit. So a GT3 car here will be exhilarating, but make no mistake, GT4 cars are still quite a handful to get around here, especially on iRacing, where sometimes the car can break from underneath you when you least expect it. So you really had to keep your right foot as disciplined as possible, even with cars like these with traction control and ABS.
Right now, still a battle going on. The lead has not been set too well as Jackson Asensio looking like he has a slight lead, a slight advantage over Gael Valero. But like we said, we're about 3/4 of the way through heat number 1, so anything can happen. As we've seen, Victor Miranda, who was one of the fastest drivers out here on this track today, all it takes is just a couple little incidences or the littlest mistake from either yourself or your fellow driver, and that can easily send you out to the back, as we've seen from some of the other drivers as well. Tim State getting caught up in an incident early on as well in heat number 1. So right now, Jackson Asensio, he has his work cut out for him. We know that he is great at defending, so the battle resumes from Jackson Asensio, Gael Valero, and Martin Chico. Your 3 podium contenders right now, all going to be looking to battle out for that top spot.
And I did point out Sandy Kulhavi to be some of the picks for a race win here today. And guess what? It's bearing fruit right now, with Resende leading the Frenchman Valero and Chico, the first of the Argentines, in front of his fellow Argentine Gaston Kulhavi. So wait and see here. Final 4 laps of this first heat still needing to be played out here, but it looks good for a grandstand finish here, Kevin.
And I hope to that, like we said, we always love seeing what these guys can do with these vehicles that are down in horsepower. So, like you mentioned, the GT3 cars, I agree. That would be an amazing combination to see out here as well. What we seen last weekend, once these guys got in some of the F3 and F4 cars, you know, that was some crazy battles going on there. So a little bit more consequences in those cars once you guys start getting contact with each other. So high risk, high reward for those vehicles. These ones a little bit slower, but still, like we've seen from the last couple of races, the slower cars with a little bit less horsepower, you know that these guys are having to push a little bit harder, especially going into those deep braking zones from the long straights. So like we said earlier, we were at the Nürburgring Grand Prix course earlier today. Now out at Misano World Circuit. So a full day of slightly lower horsepower cars, but that does not mean that the racing has been any less interesting. As we see Jackson Senjay starting to pull up slightly over Gael Valero, and Gael Valero also pulling farther away from Martin Chico. So about a second between a couple of those drivers there. So we'll see. Like we said, Jackson Senjay has just a little bit more pace earlier on. So sector 1, Senjay set the best sector, but Valero and Chico having a better sector 2. So this just goes to show some certain parts of the track these drivers are doing a little bit better than others, and we'll see. Jackson Senjay has just a couple laps to be able to hold off Gael Valero.
Yeah, but for how long here? Because previously just about 300 of a second the difference between the both of them. So at least by the line he got a bit more advantage to Senjay, but as we said earlier, Valero will not give up without a fight. And watching brief between all three of them is Martin Chico, only about 1.5 seconds behind here. So anything can still happen to these guys up in front as we head into the closing stages of this first heat, Kevin.
So right now, heat number 1, we are almost there, almost the white flags. So I'm really excited to see what goes on for heat number 2. So especially since having a couple of those incidences going on, it was looking like Victor Miranda early on in this race. He was climbing through the grid very, very quick. He's still up 5 positions from where he was at the very beginning of it. So Victor Miranda, once again, starting at the back of the pack, making his way all the way up. He was in podium contention until he had an unfortunate incident that set him back a little bit, followed by another couple little things going on. So these guys always out here doing the best that they can, and right now, Jackson Senjay. You know what? One thing, seeing the GT4 cars on here, I'm actually really curious how this track would be with the TCR cars as well. So also a little bit lower horsepower, but just seeing the show that's been put on so far this season from the TCR cars, especially a few of the drivers that kind of specialize a little bit more on that. I know one driver we see a lot with TCR, Kieran Harrison, also another fan favorite, veteran driver, especially in the TCR cars. I'd love to see some of those guys get out here on track and show us what they can do with that car as well. So maybe sometime in the future, we'll see that car and track combo.
Indeed, I mean, the TCR cars actually do run here in real life, and we have records to prove so, as TCR Italy visited here before. But again, these kind of flowing circuits really would suit TCR cars up to a T, but it's where some of the stop-start sections where you really make your money's worth, and whether or not you can really tempt fate by trying to budge something out of the way for position, which is something you can do in touring cars, but in GT cars, I would say not a chance, especially in iRacing where the contact model can be so penalizing.
And speaking of the contact model too, so it was nice to see now with the new season in iRacing going on that they did officially update their damage models, everything, to pretty much the whole lineup of cars. So there were some of the older vehicles, some things that weren't getting as much of a love. So now iRacing starting to add a little bit more, make some more changes, start really getting a lot of things, hearing some feedback from the community, and starting to get stuff changed up out here as well. So we love seeing that iRacing. As we see right now, the bottom right-hand corner, it's in between Dantas and State. So looking like State getting into the back of him, and then unfortunately spinning out. Dantas able to start driving away from that. So Tim State, unfortunately, getting the worst part of that incident there as well.
Oh, it's such a shame, isn't it? What looked like a promising end to that first race when begging. Now the second race, he's gotta have to do it all over again with equally difficult circumstances. Where in GT4 cars, not like motorbikes in MotoGP, there's not so many clear-cut areas where you can overtake a car here. You can either try to do it at the start-finish line, coming to turn number 1, where you just cut it a bit, but run the risk of getting a penalty. And in iRacing, you not want to waste a whole lap just so you can actually just do another one afterwards.
That's all right here. So we do have the white flag waving, and it's looking like the battle is going to go all the way down to the wire between Jackson Senjay and Gael Valero. So we've seen Valero trying to make a move right there, but Senjay also doing an amazing job of defending it. So right here, Valero right on the rear quarter panel as, he gets a little tap, and off goes Senjay into the gravel pit, leaving the door open for Gael Valero to go on that. So we might have to see if that gets protested or not, as that also leaves the door wide open for Martin Chico to go in there. So I know Jackson Asenje is going to be looking to make his comeback in heat number 2. So once again, we're going to have to see what happens after the race with that one. That was just a little bit too close to driving, and unfortunately sending Asenje off into the gravel trap.
Wow, that was an amazing save for Asenje, though we thought that he was going to lose it for a moment into the barriers and just call it a day there and then. But miraculously, kept the car going in the right direction, even when he was off the track there, to just get it back onto the circuit and lost not so much time. He's in P3, but again, what could have been if he actually didn't get taken up by Valero there for a second.
And that, speaking of saves also, we've already seen a couple great saves going on today. So yeah, we'll have to see if that one makes the highlight reel right there of an absolutely beautiful save. As we see right now, Gael Valero coming across the checkered flag in that first place, followed by Martin Chico in second and Jackson Asenje in third. So like we said, once again, we'll have to see if there's any post-race penalties, anything there. Again, close racing, that is bound to happen, but that is why we have the stewards out here to help with these decisions, to make sure that everyone keeps it as fair as they possibly can. But now we see towards the back of the pack, a few more drivers still coming across the line. We have Evandro Dantas, Tim State now rounding out towards the back. So they're going to be heading towards the front of the line, but now we'll have to see exactly what happens going into heat number 2 after that incident there at the very last of heat number 1.
Yeah, again, it's a case of deja vu, isn't it? To the best of us, especially when you're fighting for position, but the other guy or driver beside you just couldn't gauge it in time and causing an accident. So we'll wait and see if a similar tactic is going to be deployed here, especially the likes of Victor Miranda, who will be absolutely miffed by that first heat, where he could have easily been right out there in contention for the win, but he has to settle for P5. We'll wait and see what he does here from this grid spot in heat number 2.
So that too as well. So Victor Miranda was also able to set the fastest lap there. So no big surprise how well he did in qualifying, that he did, just set back by some incidents in heat number 1. But heat number 2, it's a new fresh start for a lot of these drivers. See if Gael Valero will now be able to make it 2 in a row, come back from the back of the pack. But like we said, Victor Miranda, we know it looks like he's keeping the fastest pace out here right now, currently sitting in 6th on the grid. We'll see if Victor Miranda can get that win out here in heat number 2. So here we go, guys, another rolling start. So once again, out here, Misano World Circuit, AMX Season 5. We have only been here a few weeks. We started May 25th. So if you guys are thinking, hey, maybe it's too late to get in here, it's never too late to get in here and race with these guys. So once again, amxrace.com, we have our full schedule. We have everything in there. Looking down the schedule too, there's a couple races that I'm looking, I might have to just grind up my iRating to kind of get in there. I know we have a couple oddballs out there this season for AMX 5. Last season we had AMX 1 NASCAR, a full season of that, where Facundo Rago was battling it out with Connor Healy. Facundo Rago coming out on top and ending up your AMX 1 NASCAR champion of last season. We don't have a NASCAR much going on this season, but there is one race I see on the schedule down at Talladega. So Talladega always puts on a show. Ask me how I know, because I've ended up airborne last season at Talladega. It was a great time. But we should see with a lot of these drivers that this season, a reminder, you can drive 2 races in a row. So last season was changed. You had to choose 1 race per day. This season, we said, you know what, we're getting rid of that again. We're going back to letting these drivers participate as much as they want, as long as they qualify. So I should be excited to see some of these guys, like the likes of Jackson Asenje, Gael Valero, some of these guys that are absolute beasts on the road course, get out there in the oval at Talladega. So that's going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. So make sure you guys mark your calendars, see how a lot of these road guys end up, as well as some of the guys that specialize in oval coming out for that day as well.
Indeed, and really, Talladega, especially in 1987 with those cars, of course, was quite a horrifying experience, especially if you're Davey Allison, where you nearly ended up in the crowd, and you kind of recreated that as well. So to that end, iRacing did a great job in simulating the real thing, but luckily in virtual, you don't end up flying into the crowd. You just end up shedding pieces of a car if you crash in iRacing.
So right now, with one of the longest formation laps, so I said it's a great time for a podcast. We're going to start the formation lap podcast. We should get that going. But in all seriousness, out here we're almost through on that lap. So just a couple more turns, and these guys will be going green. So just a reminder, we have Tim State of Dantis out at the front of the pack. Let's see. Hopefully these guys don't get an unfortunate incident like we've seen in heat number 1. It'd be absolutely amazing to see these guys battling it out as the pace car is off the safety car from Porsche as we go into the home stretch. And Tim State getting the jump. So great start right there by Tim State. And then we have Pedro Dean coming around behind just as well. So green flags waving, and you couldn't ask for a better start than that.
Oh, certainly, because again, for those guys who didn't have a really good first heat, when they got taken out as early as just quarter number 3, the likes of State and Villarreal would love to be up there, but unfortunately Villarreal has dropped a few positions since then. But State, with the getaway of dreams, gets the whole shot, stays in front after a few corners, and let's see what he can do here up in front with only 3/10 the gap between himself, Dean, and Kulhavi.
And looking at all the drivers on here, I'm going to have to see, I'm curious what happened to the other Dean brothers. So earlier today, we see both Pedro Dean and Vinicius Dean were both competing out here in the second race of the day. It looks like we only do have Pedro Dean. So I'm very curious to see what happened that we didn't have the Dean brothers, as we have Pedro Dean right now making a beautiful move to the inside to overtake Tim State. So right now that is going to be P1 for Pedro Dean.
Yeah, that is a beautiful maneuver, isn't it? Because he just kept it very narrow on the inside. State hung around the outside. Of course, he has VR, so he can see more of the circuit than what Pedro does. But Pedro kept it even tighter and just had a good run on the exit. Now it's Tim State's turn here to see what he can do in retaliation.
And look at that, Tim State is getting dangerously close to the rear end of Pedro Dean. So like we said, the tires are still just a little bit cold. We're only on lap 1, so big kudos to Tim State to be able to hang on to the bumper of Pedro Dean like that, as well as making sure to hold off Gaston Kulhavi, as Kulhavi's doing the exact same thing to stay right here. But we're on the home stretch, so this is a great opportunity. These guys will see who overtakes it, who ends up holding on. Will Pedro Dean hold on to first place, or will one of these guys see Kulhavi going to second, Martin Chico, as Tim State unfortunately going off all the way down to the back into 8th place. So I'm sure we'll have to see a replay to see exactly what happened there. Tim State had an amazing start, and now unfortunately getting dropped back down the pack.
Oh, that's a real tragedy, isn't it? Again, it's a bit iffy what happened there, but maybe, just maybe, one attempt too many from one of those guys in that pack that allowed that forced Tim State to lose positions, but made a mistake. Second all the way to 5th. In fact, if you want to include first all the way to 6th, only a close by a whisker.
So now that we're in heat number 2, and we can see on the bottom right, Tim State right there, unfortunately ended up off the track, now in 8th place. So looking behind him, though, we still have Diego Villarreal, who is still out with us, down 2 laps off of everyone else. So unfortunately for Diego Villarreal, he was, we'll have to see again, too, check in with him exactly what happened back there towards the beginning of the race. But right now, we have a great battle forming on our hands. Martin Chico trying to hold off Victor Miranda. Again, Victor Miranda doing absolutely amazing in qualifying. Did very well last heat, making his way up through the pack until he got into an incident that shut him back down. So Victor Miranda, you know, he's hungry for that win. He got a win earlier today as well as top qualifying. So Victor Miranda coming for that top spot. Pedro Dean will have his workout cut for him, but don't put Pedro Dean down and out just yet. As we can see, as soon as I say that, we have a bit of maybe a bit of a network issues going on as we see the timing going a bit crazy right there.
Yeah, it was only for a momentary second there, though. Might just be temporary. We'll be able to see how it goes after this. But up in front, Dean only about 0.8 of a second in front of Chico and Miranda. So Brazilians 1st, 3rd, and 4th, with Argentines 5th and 2nd and 5th right now. Chico and Kulavi are swarmed by a sea of Brazilian Armada here. Let's see if they can hold on to their nerve and try to get back at Pedro Dean.
We can see there, so that definitely helps having the two Tony Kanaan esports drivers of Victor Miranda and Jackson Ascension right there. As we see, Miranda going to the inside and getting into another incident, sending it just a little bit too much into Martin Chico, clipping his rear bumper, or right there on the rear quarter panel. So right there too, same thing that we seen in heat number 1 earlier of Victor Miranda braking extremely late, trying to squeeze onto the inside, and this time he ends up moving forward, and unfortunately we have Chico ending up towards the back of the pack this time.
But again, he's only about 1.2 seconds behind. Make it around, we can say bet 6 seconds here, the separation between all the guys in the top 12. If, let's say, among the drivers here that were to just say, okay, I'm going to try to go one here early. Let's see if he makes a mistake. It may not work. But we'll have to see what Rosende has to plot behind Miranda here. He'll no doubt be using the slipstream, just like what they did in qualifying, to get by. As we see what happened here between Miranda and Chico again, Kevin.
Yeah, so like I said, just looks like Miranda had a little bit more speed, tried to make that move up on the inside, but unfortunately it shot him back out slightly right into the rear quarter panel of Chico. So Chico getting the worst out of that. He looked like he had a line, you know, that debatable of whether or not those guys were giving each other enough space, but the outcome is the same nonetheless. Whether that was just driving a bit too hard or just didn't quite see where the other driver was. But that puts Pedro Dean still in first place, Victor Miranda in second, and now Jackson Senje in third. So we have a Brazilian 1, 2, 3 on our hands. Let's see the two teammates in second and third place if they're going to work together to try to catch up to Pedro Dean. And also, Pedro Dean definitely has his work cut out. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking having a team right behind you. So Pedro Dean, like we mentioned earlier, the Dean brothers not yet here in this race, so Pedro Dean doesn't quite have that help to the same as Victor Miranda, Jackson Senji. But a lot of these guys, they know each other, they've raced each other before, so we're all good friends, we're all having great times, but at the end of the day, it's all about who wants that win the most. So we'll see who has the pace to keep it up. We're in lap number 4 out of 12 out here in heat number 2.
Yeah, it's after the old adage of who wants it more. And for the time being, at least, this circuit really provides some really good flow right now. Zende, only about 4 tenths of a second behind Victor. Cross line they go this time. It's still about 3 tenths of a second, 3.5 tenths, as we now try to see whether or not these two can reach up to Pedro Pen. So it's up behind to the back of Pedro Dean.
So right now, it feels like this second heat has been going on forever, just with all the action going on. But like we said, we're only 5 laps into this race, so a lot of action, a lot of crazy close racing so far for only being 5 laps in. So like we said, not even halfway there. Not even halfway there for heat number 2. And this is what we've seen going on the entire time. Right, bumper to bumper, door to door, a couple incidences, but Pedro Dean trying to hold off Victor Miranda, like I said, Victor Miranda doing amazing during qualifying, and now looking to get his second win of the day out here, heat number 2. Gael Valero doing great earlier. Also, like I said, Jackson Senje, Pedro Dean, these guys are no slouch. So right here, Pedro Dean number 1, Victor Miranda number 2, Jackson Senje number 3. It's getting We've seen a lot of Brazilian 1, 2, 3s as we're looking now in the back, in the middle of the pack. Gael Valero and Gaston Kulavi also battling it out right there. Gael Valero doing an excellent job, able to get that overtake, but Kulavi looking to take it right back as we go into these sweeping, wide open turns. We'll see if Gael Valero is able to defend him, especially once we get back onto the home straight going into turn number 1.
Yeah, let's see then. 2.1 seconds now between Valero and Resende, so the top 3 are more or less settled. Or is it because Dean, with a very big slide out of the final corner, he's gonna get the penalty, and he does serve it? How much time will he lose? Well, quite a lot, to be honest. He could have easily been up to 3rd, but now he's dropping it all the way back to P7.
And that too. So I was really looking forward towards a battle for first between Victor Miranda and Pedro Dean, but now if we want to see that, we're going to have to see Pedro Dean not only get back up to fight for first place, but he's going to have to make his way through Jackson Sanjay first, which we've seen all week long, all season long, and even in past seasons. Once you let these guys get up front, they're definitely going to do a great job at starting to pull away every chance they get. So Victor Miranda, Jackson Sanjay, the two teammates, first and second now, definitely going to work. Well, again, we're about halfway through this heat number 2, so if they can start pulling away from Pedro Dean, that's just going to leave it a lot more room for them to have a little bit of friendly competition towards the end of this heat. So we'll just have to wait and stay tuned to see what they do there. So especially once you're on a teammate, you never want to fight with each other, especially if you are a fan of Formula One. You've seen over the past few weeks, what happens when, not even just the past few weeks, but the past few seasons, some of these drivers, I'm not going to say who, that they're teammates and they somehow end up crashing into each other way too much.
Yep. Again, like we mentioned previously in one of the other heats, one of the other races, you do not want to get anger consuming out to you, otherwise you will lose your valuable time. And certainly, in terms of battling, Resende and Miranda will know that full well. You do not want to hit your teammate. You do not want to cause any shame that happens to the team if you were to be involved in a friendly fire collision. They will know that full well at the back of their minds. Physically, right now, Miranda and Resende are pretty much working together to be the class of the field, just stretching away the gap from the rest. But Pedro Dean, on the other hand, about 5/10 of a second behind Miranda Resende here. So again, anything can happen if they were to just pull the trigger wrong.
Yeah, and looking at some of these drivers that are teammates, mentioning Miranda and Zenjay, you see them chatting on comms, so, from time to time, whenever their picture pops up on the screen, you can see them chatting away. I'm actually curious to see how many teams out here also possibly have their spotter or another teammate out there helping them out as well. I know some of these close battles here, it is great to be able to see just how close you are. Again, depending on your setup, I know Tim State a little bit better with, having that depth perception of VR. It is sometimes a little bit easier to know exactly how close you are to the other cars around you. But again, if some of these guys, possibly have their teammates out there spotting for them, shout out to any teammates that are unable to be in the race right now. We love you guys. We miss you. We hope to see you coming back tomorrow as well as the following races. But back to here, we can see these guys doing an excellent job of working together. The gap is now still just under a second between Jackson Sanjay and Pedro Dean. So Pedro Dean still doing an amazing job. He had that slowdown earlier. So we'll see. He's still in podium contention, but he had that win in his sights. So he's going to do his best to catch back up to these two teammates.
Indeed, about a second now covering first to third, but we'll see. That lap time last time by, Resende, the ball's in his court here. He was faster than Miranda by a tenth, 2 tenths faster than Dean. So Dean has not been able to make inroads for the time being.
And speaking of the timing too, I'm looking out here. Looks like we also have Gael Valero, who's doing very, very good too. So Gael Valero, that last lap was just about 2/10 of a second quicker than Pedro Dean. So we should see now if Gael Valero can start closing in on that gap, and he's going to be looking for that podium contention as we see who really late breaking in there. So he's caught up really quick. So what was a 3-way battle is now starting to turn into a 4-way battle. So that's going to be good news, though, hopefully for the two Brazilian teammates up front. They're really going to hope Pedro Dean and Gael Valero start battling it out behind them. That way they can walk off with the 1-2 for their team.
Yeah, imagine that if the two of them come a cropper at the worst possible juncture, because we're in the final stages of this race. Yes, we just only passed the halfway point, but now the drivers are starting to think, how are we going to finish this off? They probably tried to formulate a plan on the fly, work together here, something that Miranda and Resende are doing, but the guys behind can still be just inching ever closer if they were to get it all wrong.
So right now it really just comes down to who's going to be able to keep their lap times, keep it clean. We've seen time and time again, especially out here, even just this weekend so far, that just the littlest mistake can send you off the track and leave the door wide open for someone else to take that position. So Victor Miranda, Jackson Senjay, they're doing well so far, but they're definitely going to have to keep it clean because Pedro Dean is still keeping up very, very good pace with these first two drivers. So, as well as Gael Valero. So, again, as much as you want to work together, it's one of those things of let's see how much Victor Miranda can take advantage of being in the front, or if Jackson Senjay, if he has a little bit more pace on him, if Victor Miranda is going to let his teammate pass. Once again, that's the last thing you want to do, is be battling it out with your own teammate for the lead, leaving room for the drivers behind to catch up to you.
Yeah, but again, team orders is not something that's frowned upon in sim races because a lot of teammates help each other out all the time. But since they're up in front, very closely related here, it might just anger some folks knowing that they have the opportunity to just use faster cars and get by. And there we go. Resende with an easy move on Miranda. So Miranda gave up a lot of space. But for how long is he going to keep that position? Does he come out to the back straight here?
So like I said too, I'm curious if they have someone else helping them out, watching their timing just like we are. Like I said, it did look like, hey, Victor Miranda, he does have excellent pace, but seeing some of those sector times, you know, Jackson Ascended, there is a few different sections there. So we'll have to see exactly what their strategy is right there for that driver swap. So Miranda was in the lead, let SNJ go by. So not sure again if that was 100% intentional or if it's one of those things too that, you know, you got to keep in mind that some of these drivers, when they're coming back from the back of the grid, trying to get all the way up into first place, they're wearing through those tires as fast as they can, you know, leaving everything out on the line. So that also, hey, we're only 10 laps in, but by right now, if you're pushing it as hard as you possibly can, some of that tire degradation is going to start playing a little bit of a role.
Yeah, it's going to wreak a bit of havoc here, but as I said previously as well, raining, blistering, and tire wear isn't much of a problem here on iRacing. It's just the way that you drive it probably would cause you some grievances on the road here. But regardless now, the Fat Four up in front, presenting Miranda, Dean, Valero, the drivers among themselves in a group here, ready to see who can take it to the rostrum and the overall win.
And see right now, so we do have pretty much just a battle, four-way battle going up front. There is roughly a 5-second gap between Gael Valero in fourth and Gaston Kulavi in fifth place. So with only a couple laps left to go out here in heat number 2, I think that this is pretty much going to be the one to watch. I'm not quite sure if Gaston Kulavi has enough pace in him to make up that 5 seconds to catch back up to Gael Valero. But like we said, once these guys start battling it out, anything can happen. We've seen that happen on the last lap. Last time too, it was Gael Valero also getting the battle going on too. So once that white flag flies, some of these drivers start pushing it a little bit harder than they maybe have the last couple laps before that. So again, leaving everything out on the line. But so far, still, right now, as we're about to head into lap number 11, Jackson Senjay first place, Victor Miranda second, and Pedro Dean in third.
Yeah, but how long is this leaderboard going to stay this way? I'm really not sure. It might just go all the way to the final lap here between Miranda and Resende. Dean and Valero will be fancying their chances as well. But so far, at least, their paces are both plateaued out. It's about the same here. So, once again, it's going to be another train ride all the way to finish for Resende. But, really, pace at the moment, we'll have to see if other races can actually provide it in the bag.
Right now we can see right there the lone BMW of Gael Valero. So looking at the timing screen too, he is keeping up pace very, very well with Jackson Senjay. But like we said, you know, when you have two drivers right in front of you, he's gonna be trying to make Pedro Dean force a mistake onto him, as he knows he has better pace than him right now. So with only about a lap and a half left in this race, Gael Valero really going to be putting the pressure on Pedro Dean. So Pedro Dean was leading the race early on. Unfortunately, he had a slowdown that put him back in third place, and it has pretty much been the Brazilian 1, 2, 3 almost all race long. So Gael Valero looking to disrupt that and get up on the podium.
But he may have left it a bit too late here, because if he wanted to get up to the top 2, he could have actually done so by overtaking Dean initially. But it looks as though Pedro Dean is becoming a bigger wall to penetrate than he would have thought. now he's on to the final lap. It's all do or die here for Valero if he wants to take a second consecutive heat race win.
And seeing these guys, so this is just shown, I love seeing the growth of a lot of these drivers too. As the white flag flies, we're on lap 12, Nuv 12. So we'll have to see, it's now or never for Gael Valero and Pedro Dean to be trying to make a move, see if they can get up or if this is going to be where they finish the race. So really, really close between Gael Valero and Pedro Dean. Just right on the rear bumper of him as Gael Valero looking to slightly, he takes a peek, but he's not going to make the move right there. As we've seen, that corner also have a few incidents already today. So Gael Valero says, no, it's not worth it. I've seen too many people crash out right here today. I'm not going to be another one of those people crashing out on the final lap.
Yeah, but if he wants to start making to move to the rostrum, he's going to have to do it now. That's the prime overtaking spot for Valero there. He didn't make it through. Second one coming up here, and his internet's continuing to be a little bit choppy. Luckily, he still manages to keep in here. Tries to go around the outside, maybe force Dean into a mistake on exit, but no, he didn't make it through that time around. Now that his chances to overtake are slowly dwindling here, he's only have a couple of corners, and that's it in terms of overtaking spot as Misano, Kevin.
And that too, Pedro Dean doing an amazing job defending off Gael Valero. So like I said, I was saying earlier, I love seeing the growth of some of these drivers. Pedro Dean in particular, seeing where he was last season, seeing where he was coming into this season. As right now, Gael Valero trying to make that move to the inside, and it looks like he will. He forces Pedro Dean to the outside, able to make a last-minute move. And now Gael Valero going up into third place. So he had a little bit of a gap right there, and it's one of those of he's seen it, and he really pushed it. So an amazing move towards the very, very end of the race as Jackson Sanjay comes across the line, followed by his teammate Victor Miranda in second. And Gael Valero with the last minute move, able to overtake Pedro Dean, putting Gael Valero in third place, Pedro Dean back down into fourth. So an amazing move, great show going on between the two of those guys right there towards the very, very end. That's what we love to see. Laying it all out, battling until the very end. It ain't over till that checkered flag flies.
Certainly, and that was probably a very close top three, all things considered, with Resende just in front of Miranda by under a second, Valero third, Dean fourth, and Kulhabi fifth, your top five. So if let's say that Miranda actually managed to get up even faster through the field back at that time, would have probably made Resende sway even further. But luckily for Resende, he holds on to that and takes a well-deserved heat race win.
So we've seen there Jackson Sanjay first place, Victor Miranda second, Gael Valero in third, Pedro Dean getting back right, barely missing the podium, going to fourth position. So Pedro Dean doing great out there. Gaston Kulavi fifth place, Martin Chico sixth, Tim Staten seventh, Avancho Dantas eighth place, Diego Villarreal ninth, and Alberto Sanal, who unfortunately didn't make it to the grid in today's race. We really hope to see him come out here and battle these guys as well. But Victor Miranda in character setting the fastest lap once again. So the two Brazilian teammates, the Canan Esports drivers, showing why they have earned their spots to be recognized by their team and to be some of the best sim racers out here in the world, especially not just AMX, but some of the best sim racers on iRacing in general. So great show going on from those guys. Gael Valero with the last minute overtake. And yeah, we'll have to see. Like I said, Pedro Dean did a great job going all the way into the last few corners, just last moment overtake. So those are always so heartbreaking. But Amir, what was your highlight, especially I'd say probably in this heat number two, especially there was a lot of action going on. What was your highlight of this race number two?
I think it has to be the overtakes that Miranda had to do to get up to the front. We know he had the pace, but it's just that he had to deal with his teammate as well to get by. So again, close finish towards the end, but I would say that if we had a driver today, Victor Miranda would probably be here because he was competitive out of the box in both races in AMX 5 today. So credit to where it's due. He would really excel in both cars.
Absolutely. So like we said, we're there. A lot of the guys, I love seeing them showing up for both races, and I know a lot of these guys will be here tomorrow. So for all of you that are tuning in, make sure to come back tomorrow. We have a lot more great racing going on. So a few weeks into this, things are heating up. A lot of the favorite drivers that we thought would be towards the top are definitely towards the top, and a lot of drivers constantly improving, making sure that these guys have to earn their top spot or the championship points. So as always, make sure to follow us on our socials, head over to the website, stay tuned to both Twitch and YouTube to keep following all of these wonderful races as we go. Tomorrow, make sure to come back 5:50 p.m. GMT. We will be back right here. So a lot of guys out here with the other events going on. So I hope to see a lot of faces we did not see today, a lot of faces we see every weekend, and all of your beautiful faces watching at home, being out there in the chat as well. So once again, for AMX Season 5, I am Kevin with Amir, and we bid you adieu. We'll see you all next time.
I won't try to talk you into changing your mind. I only ask that you behave justly.